The conversation continues.
How ridiculously complicated they've tried to make this global warming argument.
We're today's news talk, The Pulse.
Well, Murra is putting out absolutely nothing this morning. No wind whatsoever in the Wimmera. We build another 10,000 wind turbines in the Wimmera and there will still be no energy. What we really need to do is we need to examine the business case for all of these projects. Transparency and community consultation is required, and I don't think that's too much to ask. What we've got is an absolutely pathetic government. They're pushing ahead on projects like the Big Build and the Suburban Rail Loop with no business case. This is our money. This is our future. It's the young people's future that's getting put down the toilet by a poor process from government. We absolutely must have a proper business case. We must have transparency. We must see what the numbers are. There's no point, absolutely no point, investing capital where there is no return for Australian citizens. No energy out of Murra, no returns out of the investment. This is absolute oblivion for Australians and Victorians in particular. The Victorians, Ben Carroll, has not come to the right side. He is still pouring capital down absolutely terrible black holes with no return. We need a proper process. We need proper independent business cases and proper review. The community should be insisting on this as the case. Sonia Kilkenny, the planning minister, shortcutting planning processes. That is absolutely not right. She is doing the bidding of global multinationals and corporates. We've got to stop this process. We need a better government, a better process, and a better outcome for Victorians. Thank you very much. It's Ross Johns here for the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. Enjoy your day.
Rain and storms continue in the west, mostly settled elsewhere. G'day, David from the Bureau here with a look at the weather across the country for tomorrow, Friday, August 28th. Let's take a look at the national map to start with, and the main feature is this low pressure system down here in southeastern WA. That's been bringing showers, rain and storms across much of southern Western Australia this week, and tomorrow's the turn of the far southeast. Elsewhere in the country, a weak cold front clips Tasmania and southern Victoria during tomorrow, but the rest of the country will remain dry and settled under this large high pressure system. Let's go around the grounds now, starting with Queensland, where it will be mild to warm and sunny across the vast majority of the state. Just one or two showers about the exposed parts of the east coast, the typical areas, and temperatures generally ranging from the mid to high 20s in the south up to the low 30s in the north. That's a couple of degrees above the August average temperatures, but we are close to the end of the month, so we're about to click over into warmer September average temperatures. Brisbane, a mostly sunny top of 25 degrees. For New South Wales and the ACT, some morning fog and patchy frost inland, and then a mild and sunny day pretty much statewide. For Sydney, a sunny top of 20 degrees. For Canberra, a mostly sunny top of 17. In Victoria, some morning fog and frost in the north and then sunny there. In the south, cloud increasing through the day. There's one or two bands of showers moving across from the west later in the day. For Melbourne, a shower or two and a top of 17 degrees. Showers in the afternoon and early evening, and then most likely clearing up for the footy after 7:30. For Tasmania, some showers mainly in the early morning as that cold front crosses the state, and mainly in the west, remaining pretty much dry in the east. Hobart, a top of 15 degrees. A cloudy day, one or two showers around in the early morning, but a dry day overall. For South Australia, mild and sunny across the eastern half of the state, just a little bit of cloud and maybe a morning shower or two down around Mount Gambier. And then in the far west, some showers and a few thunderstorms way out west there. There is the risk of damaging winds with severe thunderstorms in the very far west of the state. For Adelaide, a sunny top of 21 degrees. For southern Western Australia, dry and partly cloudy through the very far southwest, including for Perth, Bunbury and Busselton. And then as you head further east, the wet weather kicks in around this low pressure system, which will be centred on the southeast of the state tomorrow. So Parts of the wheat belt and then much of the goldfields and the interior districts and the southeast coast can expect 5 to 15 millimetres of rain again tomorrow, with some locally higher totals in thunderstorms. The risk of damaging winds in severe thunderstorms in the far east as well. And that system, that rain-bearing system, has been quite generous. It's brought rain right across southwest Western Australia through this week, from when it started out down in the southwest Capes late Tuesday and then gradually spreading east, bringing welcome rain to many areas. For Perth, mostly sunny top of 21 degrees tomorrow. And lastly, in the north, warm to hot and sunny conditions is the order of the day again across the north. Darwin, a sunny top of 34 degrees. That's all from us for now. If you need more information and the latest forecasts and warnings, you can always head to our website, our app and our social media channels. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.
Gone so quiet now, no birds sing in the dawn. The creek still winds through ancient stone, but everyone is gone. I walk the ridge where I was born and call into the sky, but only echoes answer me, and I don't know why. There's sorrow in the snow tonight, there's fear beneath the trees. The mountain holds its breath for us and trembles in the breeze. Why am I so alone? Why, in the only country I have known? What did I do wrong? Can somebody tell me why I was only living free beneath the mountain sky? Why do the gentle always cry? Speak of me in hard words now, as if I have no name, as if my heart is not a heart, as if I feel no pain. But I have loved our country well, the grass is rain and stone. I carried life across these hills and never walked alone. My mother's breath is in this wind, my father's in this ground. The bloodline of the mountain horse still echoes all around. Why am I so alone? Why in the only country I have known? What did I do wrong? Can somebody tell me why I was only living free beneath the mountain sky? Why do the gentle always cry? I remember my mother's shadow moving softly through the snow. I remember running beside her where the mountain rivers flow. Now I call into the silence and only echoes reply. The wind knows where they've gone, but she won't tell me why. The valley wears a heavy grief, the stars seem far away. Every sound upon the mountain makes me fear another day. I never wanted anything but to stay where I belong. I only knew the ancient pathways, the rivers and the songs. And if you walk these mountains with me, you might understand the love a heart can carry for both family and land. Why am I so alone? Why in the only country I have known? What did I do wrong? Can somebody tell me why I was only living free beneath the mountain sky? Why do the gentle always cry? Country, keep my family near, hold them safely in your light. If they wander through the darkness, guide them gently through the night. And if one heart still remembers, if one voice still sings our song, then perhaps we're not forgotten, and perhaps we still belong.
Our mission at Pets of the Homeless is really simple, and that's to keep vulnerable people and their pets together when they're going through a tough time. Back in 2015, Pets of the Homeless started with a 20-kilo bag of dog food, made it into small packs, put it in a suitcase, and it was just me walking down the streets of Melbourne, one woman on a mission to make a difference. I would share the story on social media.
We've just hit 100,000 meals distributed today.
And the community really responded positively, and it just grew from there.
My name is Kent, and this is Hippo. She's everything to me. She's such a good girl. I got her at a time when I wasn't very stable. I'd come out of prison, I was homeless, but as soon as I got her, I just realised, oh my God, I can't let this dog go. And she's just my best friend. Hippo had a canine equivalent of an ACL injury. I knew there was something really desperately wrong. It was agonising seeing her suffering. My caseworker put me in touch with Pets of the Homeless, and Yvonne said that they could help, and I was just so overjoyed. I wouldn't have been able to get through that medical incident without their help. Like, it just would have been impossible.
That bond between us and our pet is very important, and when someone is going through a really tough time in their life, that bond becomes even more important, and that's what we're trying to protect at Pets of the Homeless.
Who's that?
My favourite quote is, "I always wondered why somebody doesn't do something about that. Then I realised I was somebody." My intention wasn't to actually start a charity, it was to help. It was just putting one foot in front of another, and that's how we got to where we are today. We're now in a warehouse. We have about 150 volunteers. We provide on average about 60 to 70,000 meals every single month. We have a network of about 73 community partner organisations that we work with. We've also taken in hundreds of pets into our foster care program, and we've just reached 2.5 million meals distributed.
In the time that I've been volunteering with Pets of the Homeless, I've seen the community grow, numbers of volunteers, pet food packing, got a brand new van, and we can reach more community pantries and reach more people. The community, whether it's the volunteers who are packing the food, who are foster caring, they've got so much love to give.
I think Pets of the Homeless gives people hope There can be a bit of judgment for people who are homeless and have a dog, but the reality is those dogs have got love and support, and it's so wonderful that Pets of the Homeless are able to help. It really makes a big difference in actual lives. It's really important work.
To the people who have supported Pets of the Homeless over the last 10 years, thank you from the bottom of my heart. There's so many kind people out there, and I'm just grateful for all of them. The work that we need to do is so huge and the need is growing, and we can't do it without the support of our community.
So many places where they're using 1080 poison baits.
Yeah, it's an absolute travesty, mate.
It really is.
1080 baits, if you've seen what a 1080 bait does to a dog, it's one of the most horrific things you'll ever witness. And the second you see something like that, you'll be a big advocate for getting rid of 1080 baits. It's not the way to solve the problem with wild dogs and foxes and things like that.
On Sunday, August the 30th, I got a phone call from my husband. I wasn't here, I was out in Aramac staying with family. And he rang me very distressed and crying on the phone and told me that Tippy was dead. And he then described to me how that happened. He said he was inside, heard Tippy outside yelping, which progressively went and rapidly went to screaming, and he was thrashing him, throwing himself around. He went under my car, which is parked on the veranda in a carport, threw himself under the car and up under the wheel arch, obviously looking for sanctuary. Greg tried to grab him and got hold of his leg, and as he did that he just dropped dead. So he rang me and told me about this, so I was obviously quite distraught as well. And then he had to go into town, into Bundaberg, to pick up for a pre-arranged appointment. And when he came home a couple of hours later, Faye, our Maremma dog, was also dead. So within a couple of hours, we're not sure, any time between 9:30 and midday is when she died on that morning. So yeah, Greg took them to bury them, and he took Ted with him when he buried these two dogs, and Ted was there with him. And after Greg finished burying them, he wouldn't leave. He just laid, he sat, moved around. He wouldn't leave the gravesite. So Greg had to literally pick him up and take him away. So he knew his mates were in there. So, yeah, sorry.
1080 is not a humane poison, and despite people's claims that it is humane, we now recognise that that's not the case. It's not good enough to pretend to ourselves that it's humane and keep on doing the same old thing that we've been doing for years. There's no excuse to keep on using a poison that is not humane and that we know is not humane.
And welcome to The Pulse. Nice to have your company too. It's 4:17. It's a Thursday. Tomorrow in Queensland is a public holiday. I have to work. We all do. Why can't the whole country take the time off at once? Have to wait till Christmas. Isn't that dreadful? Anyway, nice to have your company too. Instant Polls is our official sponsor. If you want to increase your bottom line, boost your communication with your frontline staff, and gather valuable data from your most important resource, that's your employees, then visit, of course, Instantpolls.online to learn more. Now, this week's poll is on the pulse. Do you have your pen handy? Take this down. Do you believe the media coverage of bird flu in Australia is accurate? No. No. Hey, did you see that? Just off track for a second. Did you see that the ISC is powered up with News Corp? Reminds me of the days of, I'll talk to Gary Duffy about this, reminds me of the days of the COVID nightmare, when the big pharma and the government and everybody, all those awful people, powered up with News Corp and the other media. And News Corp is truly, truly a horrible, horrible bunch of people. They're just terrible. Rupert Murdoch doesn't own it now, but the same legacy continues. That's to really mess up the world, mess up the country. News Corp. Anyway, so they're going to pump it out. They're already saying that the bird flu is jumping into animals. We'll have to shoot and kill more animals. Got to kill them all. By the way, just use the QR code on your screen to vote. Each vote is secure and anonymous and verified by 2FA. The poll closes next Monday, the 31st of August, and the result will broadcast on the Pulse after 4 p.m. The link has been published on our Facebook page, and you can share that link, by the way, and ask your family and friends to participate. Your opinion does matter, and share the love.
Management was deciding in the dark. We lacked a method to hear from people across the organisation. We started using Instant Polls under our brand. Their expert design templates made it effortless to ask the right questions of the people who matter most, our frontline teams. We've seen improved profits and happier staff, and we now make better company decisions thanks to Instant Polls. Join us. Try your first free poll at Instantpolls.online.
You're with Mike Ryan on today's News Talk, The Pulse.
Gary Duffy, by the way, that is not photoshopped. Peter Campion, I'll never forgive him for that. Gary Duffy has a few life skills, beginning life as a ringer. He qualified as a mechanic at 19, was A grade at 21, before becoming a master technician for Ford, Mitsubishi and Mazda. He was a coacher of rugby league for 18 years. Coacher? Jen, no such thing as a coacher. He's a coach of rugby league. See, Jen doesn't play rugby. I don't either. And he coached them in Europe, coached Rugby Union in Europe, which is a pretty mean feat to say the least. I wonder if they understood what he means. Australians don't move their lips, according to those overseas. All right. You know, Gary worked at several large companies in Budapest, including TEVA Pharmaceuticals, BOSCH, Sony, and at Trinity Colleges. He has been a banana farmer, throwing out all the bent ones, cut sugarcane by hand, invented tools for the automotive industry, and won the Queensland Small Business of the Year and Premier's Award for Innovative Products. Gary currently has a small organic farm, 432,000 acres in Clarendon, and another one around the corner, which has 4 to 5 families of wombats on it. You know what wombats do? According to my biology book, they do things that, anyway, I'm not going to go there. We talked today about Queensland's critical minerals legislation that passed recently without amendment. Gary, thank you for joining us. 4,500 acres, or 432. What is it? It's a very large one.
No, it's not that big. I think you can take the
1,000 bit off
and come down a bit on that.
You know, when I was at school, because I went to a Catholic school, so you always look for a bit of, stuff, and it had in the biology book, wombats. Under it, I'm not making this up, and this is just terrible childhood humour here and smut. But and being a Catholic, we were intrigued. It had wombats, eats roots and leaves. And I just thought that was an intriguing thing to put in a Catholic school. Could you explain what they mean by that?
Yeah, it means that they forage and they eat the root plants and they eat leaves that are fresh leaves.
Excellent.
It's not what you may be having an innuendo into.
No, I'm just trying to be... trying to catch you out, Gary, but you're far too sharp. Even yesterday when I sent you some, Jen passed on some messages, you were just far too sharp for me. And I have to realise I'm out of my league when it comes to someone with your intellect and humour.
I left school at 14. I don't have intellect.
Well, you do. You have life intellect, which is much better than having just out of a book. Tell me about your thoughts on the critical minerals bill.
I talk a little bit about that with Ag Force and that, but Just one point first, and you talk about the ISC and everything else, and Jenny Sharp and what Jenny Sharp and the ISC are doing, and now they're involved in the fairy penguins and everything else. When I went to school, we had this guy we called the Psycho, and one day he got out, got home from school, went and dug all these holes, put all these chickens in the holes, and went to start the lawnmower up. And the thing is that the ISC and the Minister, New South Wales Minister, aren't they doing exactly the same thing but boasting about it in the media? Because of the cruelty that's going on in Australia, and they talk about it and they boast about it. And I put the ISC and Penny Sharp in that same category as that person who went to school with. But it's just disgusting what's going on in Australia. But with the Ag Force bill, and we're talking about the bill that they're thinking of bringing in Queensland, and what it is that it's not only, everything Ag Force said on that is correct, but what is in there is it says that the government can declare something a state strategic project to use the land. So they can take the land for a state strategic project. Now, when Campbell Newman was in there, he gave the councils the powers to develop in priority development areas. So they could declare a site a priority development area, and then they could just develop it. Right, it didn't matter. They'll just come in. They'll just didn't matter that you had a farm in the area, a priority development area. It mean that the developers would come up, and it didn't care what your rights were. They were going to put whatever they want. Now you have a look at the state strategic project, and the government's bringing it in under a Critical Minerals Act, but it's not that at all. That's only one part of it. In this bill, they have this strategic project wording, and that means that, like in the Scenic Rim, where there's a proposed waste incinerator there, waste energy incinerator is proposed. Crisafulli and the government can call that a state strategic project, and they could actually take over the land, put that in there, and it doesn't matter about the impact on the rest of the community. So that's what that is. And we saw that with the Wanless case. Wanless wanted to put a dump in Ipswich, a waste landfill site in Ipswich. So he took it to the council rejected it, the people rejected it. So then he decided to take the council to court. And then after he filed the application in the court, he went and saw his mate Jim Sawley. And Jim Sawley then got the Deputy Premier Stephen Miles to call the project in. So when he calls the project in, this is what the bill that AgForce are talking about will enable the government to do. And it's a compulsory acquisition of private projects is a real shift. And once the powers are in the Act, they don't expire with this government. They don't expire with this Premier. That they are still in the toolkit or in the same machinery for the next Premier and the Premier after that and the Premier after that, and the governments after that. So where farmers and landholders are being asked to trust the minister today not to make a decision on your land that would be adverse to you, but we're also being asked to trust all the ministers in the future, and that's a wrong thing to do.
I was going to read you this. This was just sent to me then from our production department. and Research and everything else department. Today, the Queensland Resources Council has welcomed legislation passed last night as providing momentum for the state's emerging critical minerals industry. The new laws in the form of the State Development and Public Works Organisation, which is Critical Minerals and Other Legislation Amendment Bill, come ahead of the Premier's trade mission to the US. Under the reforms, the declaration of state strategic project will streamline approvals, but will not automatically approve a project or remove existing environmental, planning, resources or other approval requirements. The bill also ensures modification orders cannot remove key authorisations, including environmental authorities, mining leases, development approvals, cultural heritage management plans, or RIDAs, which is regional interest development approvals, where required. So, tell me what your thoughts are now.
Well, we've heard all that before, haven't we? We've seen, as soon as the priority development area came in for Ripley, they just steamrolled all the Indigenous rights. We saw what happened at Deebring Creek, where Deebring Creek tried to hang on to that mission site. Now it's just a development site with full of houses. For nearly 40 years, the Indigenous people fought to keep that site because of its heritage listed with the heritage critical heritage history with the Indigenous people. Is that at one stage there was 26,000 Indigenous family or people living out there who were herded there by the second Premier of Queensland, and many died there. But that was just turned into a development site once they steamrolled through all the across everyone. They just steamrolled the Indigenous people altogether. They didn't care about the environment factor. They didn't care about that that the creek, Deebring Creek, was a critical creek. They didn't care about the ground sonar picking up images of bodies under the ground. They just bulldozed the whole lot. And where they say that that's not what will happen, what will happen is we'll be challenged in a court, and the government will turn up with 30 or 40 lawyers and a couple of KCs, and you and I and the farmer or the landholder will, we can't afford to fight them in the court, and they know that, and they'll just steamroll over top of everyone.
You've been around for a while. I could tell the truth and say you were here with Ned Kelly, but I won't do that because I have respect.
With Moses, when Moses was around.
No, I was around with Moses. I'm older than you, but I'm just thinking. Have you ever seen such an attack? Not only on Australia, but on the farmers and those on the land. It's either it's for renewables, minerals, or whatever. I always thought that Australia, had gained its, I suppose, what it is, on the back of the rural industry, of the land, because we are a huge continent. Yet, and we've got so much land. Yet, it would seem that it doesn't matter what brush you're painted with, whether you're red or blue, you don't give a stuff about those on the land anymore. And you got all the ideology thrown in. Oh, that's your land now. You can have that land. It's your land. We just took it off you. We invaded you. We did all sorts of terrible things. Captain Cook, you're a mass murderer. All that sort of stuff. Which some of the history is true. You have to learn by history. But I always think you can't undo it, because if you undo it, you're undoing the way we live. And that seems to be what's happening now. Have you ever seen such an attack, just say on those on the land? You know, it used to be pretty bad anyway because there were so many rules and regulations. There are so many more now, plus restrictions and the compulsory acquisition. It means that you might go and have this great crop, and they could come in one day and say, well, bugger off. We want it, and you got no say in it. We'll pay you what we think is fair. And that farmer will say, but it was handed down, you know, generation after generation. I'm going to leave it to my son. They don't give a shit. So have you ever seen this sort of attack on farmers before?
I think it stems from they know that, we might, you might have to deep think this, right? Is that you come from the land and you've grew up on the bush, on a farm, on a dairy farm. It comes from that we need to have better services in the bush. We need to have schools, we need to have universities in the bush so that when a farming family grows up, for them to get to grade 12, most bush kids need to go to a boarding school, or they need to go to the city, and there they, you know, end up with a different lifestyle, and they end up on a different pathway to what the farm is. So we don't have the intergenerational farm family like many people do in America. It's really critical, is that you always see a lot of farming families, they all stay together, you know, and they grow up together, they farm together. But here, when your son, your daughter goes away to a boarding school and comes back, they're coming back home not to, it's more or less like a holiday place for them to go to, and eventually they end up leaving the farm. And we need to have this, that we have better high schools in rural areas so that we can keep the family together in rural areas, so that the families grow up together. And the kid is coming, like your kids are coming home, they're jumping on a tractor and they're doing something, but they wake up in their own bed, in their own house, and they grow up on the farm community. They can still become a lawyer and they can still do whatever they want when they grow up and still involve themselves in the farm and become that. But understanding that once the generation is split, then the farm becomes it's not there's no succession plan in there. And these bills and the way they attack this, they know that this older couple are the only ones on there. The kids aren't interested in coming back onto that farm, and they know that the only thing that's going to end up is that, you know, someone who's like me, just about 70, that they'll try and force me off the farm, because they know that there's only limited time up there for us to be on the farm. And our kids just said, you know, our inheritance, you know, the money, they'll just buy a house at the Gold Coast. But we have a look at that, and we need to provide better futures for our kids in the country, and provide the education that is in the country. I grew up in Tully, and Tully has an agricultural college. At the high school has got an agricultural section where they grow their own beef, they have their own banana farm, they have their own worm casting farm. The worm casting farm, they manage, each grade 11 and 12 come through and they manage that. They become their own managers, they manage the income from that. And that's how the school operates. The school has its own beef cattle. They show that they generally, a lot of times they win at the local show. They have their own sugarcane growing, and the farmer next door comes in and cuts it. They grow. So as a high school, that's how high schools in the rural community should be, is that, you know, your kids should be able to grow up in your area, understand the lifestyle that's on a farm, and come home to a place where the bedroom is next door to the next door to the hay shed, you know, instead of going off to the place out with. You take Australia as a whole. The last time we built a major city on the western side of the Great Dividing Range was when Canberra was built. We have not built a major city on the western side of the Great Dividing Range since then. So we're not focusing on putting all the infrastructure out on the western side of the Great Dividing Range. We want everyone to come back into this side of on the eastern side of the Great Dividing Range instead of providing that for them. So when these renewable energy projects and things like that, they just come on, they just barge through. They know that they'll just take over this land, this farm, and you always see that they attack the family farmer. They're never attacking the foreign-owned farm. You don't see the big foreign-owned farms being attacked with renewable energy projects or with transmission lines. They always want to try and go through a family farm, and they always pick on family farms.
Yeah. Incredible, isn't it? So I'm just looking at some notes here, which has just been sent through. It seems that the government here is, inverted commas, trying to beat the gold rush and compete against other states for critical minerals for American investment. And the other thing is, I'm just trying to read all these notes that have been sent through. The foreign investment, tell me about that part of it. I mean, I'm quite intrigued about this. It would seem that foreign investment or investment from overseas, which is the same thing, but it would seem that that is one of the overriding factors here. Would you agree?
It is. They always seem to be chasing foreign trade, foreign money, foreign this, foreign that. They're not looking at creating industries in Australia that will use these critical minerals. And we have a lot of good industries in Australia that can produce critical mineral projects and stuff like that. We don't embrace the space industry, the aerospace industry that much. We don't build aircraft, we don't build cars, we don't do a lot of things as a nation that's isolated, greatly isolated from the rest of the world, because we're an island that sits right down the bottom of down under. And we should be able to use our critical minerals for projects that are beneficial to Australians. I don't think we have, like if I've got a DJI drone, and it's a DJI 50 drone, so 50 kilos lift. So it's a big drone. Not one part of that is Australian. Yet Australia, if you have a look at the average farm size in Australia, is actually over 70, because we have so many big farms, right? No, a lot of people say, look, in the Lockyer Valley and everything else, and there's small farms, but the average Australian farm is actually 70 square kilometres. The average American farm is 1.8 square kilometres. So we have these massive big farms that really do rely on a lot on engineering, machinery, and everything else, that we don't use our critical minerals to provide engineering materials, machinery, and products for it to enable us to be really successful within our own right.
They seem to be, they are putting agriculture last, which I find just absolutely horrible. Just quickly, I just want to go back to the ISC, because it really interests me, because I see the handbook of COVID coming out again, and a lot of this is just propaganda, and it's how strong you are. It's called an information operation, if anything, and it's to convince the population that what a government does is the right thing. And by using legacy media and having a partnership now with, which the ISC is the New South Wales or governments and doing business with a couple of wackos, which is the ISC, and they're doing business with News Corp, for example, and legacy media. And so what we have now, it'll be, and for them to be saying that it's crossed over to animals, it's crossed over to mammals. I mean, this is just, I mean, let's look at the ISC. They are a bunch of, there's a bunch of absolutely F-wits working there. There are those that are scientists who are activists, who are just purely intent on taking us back to the dim dark ages. And then we have, I mean, look at Jack Goff. Jack Goff is a union official, and that's the bottom line. So, and a lobbyist with Labor, and so it's this not even ideology. It stinks of corruption. I can tell you that now. But to have all this thing pushing in a particular direction, it would mean then that for, say, even us, even if we were back to the days of TNT, which we did have 140 million viewers in 12 months, and tons of downloads, I think 20 million downloads, it would mean that we would have no say, no chance like a snowflake in hell. Because when you get and if you look at COVID, whether you agree with it or not, we don't agree with it. If you look at COVID, it was very powerful. The government was very powerful in pushing the message of putting a substance in your body that you knew nothing about, and they knew nothing about. So if they didn't know about that, what it's going to do to you, and then they use that, they extrapolate that over to what's happening now with the national parks and the horses and the other animals and stuff. We have a very powerful lobby group, the ISC, that is actually determining Australia's future. How do we beat it? Because I can tell you now, we could scream, we could drop our underpants in Parliament. It would have zero effect. Maybe my underpants might, but it would have zero effect on the determination of where they're going to take Australia. How the hell do we stop this obliteration of our heritage and the bastardisation of our future?
Well, the thing that we need to look at is the people who are so affected need to come together better. And that ISC and all that are very well organised. They've got a lot of money. The ISC is actually located in Melbourne, and one of their primary funding bodies is the Melbourne Mayor's Trust. And although the current Melbourne Mayor does not have any say in where the money goes or is not linked to the trust was actually linked up by that. So they're putting money, all this money goes into trusts and then goes to the ISC. We don't have that as private people that we can do that. And to call yourself Invasive Species Council is a misnomer. There's nothing invasive about a lot of the stuff that they claim to be representing. We have a look at the the little furry penguins, and they said, well, the reason why we're injecting them is because they're a tourist attraction and we're going to lose tourist numbers. And the other reason we're injecting them is we're catching them all and we're giving them a microchip so we can follow them. The other thing is that you have the same people handling one animal after another, after another, after another. So if you have one animal with the bird flu virus, that's going to be passed on via those same people throughout the whole history, through the day, to every other furry penguin they touch. So the other thing is that, and your guest the other day mentioned, and we looked it up and made sure that it was pretty much accurate, is that they say they're looking at a H5N1 bird flu, but they're injecting them with a H5N2 vaccine, which doesn't fight the H5N1 and doesn't prevent transmission. So, and your guess was exactly right. We looked it up, and it was exactly what she was saying, because I always want to verify what other people say. And they say it's transferred into mammals, but they had a look at deaths on, I think it was Heard Island, down in one of Australia's southern territories, and there were deaths of a lot of seals down there. But they found out that the seals were actually eating dead birds, and they actually were carrying the virus because they ate the birds, not because they actually got it. And so when they were tested, they had the virus, that they had the bird flu. But they've known since 2014 that the birds were going to migrate through the Southern Ocean. They've always known that. The New South Wales government actually put out a flyer on it last year. So yeah, but
yeah,
to combat it, to beat it, we're going to have to just all come together.
Yeah, totally agree. It's pretty wild. Look, we need to have a longer discussion. We are running out of time. We got Ross Johns waiting for us in the field, and I know he has to get going with his tractor. He's just chewing at the bit. Not really. Pulled over for us. Good on you, Ross. Come back to Ross in a second. Gary, if somebody wants to get hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, we run a small farm. It's not 4,000 hectares. It's only a few. And it's called Bunya Park Moringa. And if you just put Bunya Park Moringa, you'll find us.
Good on you. And I wasn't around with Moses too, by the way. I have to qualify that. I was before him. He was my younger brother. Thank you so much for your time. Gary Duffy there, here on The Pulse. Ross Johns has built a career in agribusiness finance and brings decades of experience in the Australian agriculture sector. Ross was born in Warwick-Nabil and farms land west of Warwick-Nabil, growing wheat, barley, canola and lentils, along with sheep for wool and meat production. Ross is a past director of the ABB Grain and ASX 100 listed company, past deputy chairman of GRDC Grains Research and Development Corporation, past director of Western Water, currently president of the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association, Inc. We're going to talk to Ross about a project no one really wants to criticise, and I wonder why. First of all, Ross, thank you for joining us. We probably need your microphone on. If you could just push your little button. We're not working. Can't believe it. You're out in the field and everything. It's actually not working. So what I might do is, Cam's there. If you could just reboot, and I'll just go and talk about something and come back to you in a second, Ross. This is The Pulse. Ross is going to reboot for a second because it's just not wanting to connect to us. We're going to talk about Snowy 2, by the way. Snowy 2. We were there just recently at Snowy 2, and it was a it was an obliteration of the environment. Ross is now with us. It was an obliteration of the environment. Ross, thank you for joining us. See what happens? It works.
No problems. Yes, it does work eventually.
I was just talking about Snowy 2.0 and how it's a massive underground pumped hydro energy storage scheme. It's going to act as a giant battery, backup battery for Australia's power grid, and is an abomination. And the cost is just go like that. Tell us your views on the thoughts of the cost of Snowy 2.0.
Oh well, I think the cost overruns are just humongous, and I don't know how they can get out of a budget 20 times over the original forecast. It just doesn't seem reasonable, and there seems to be no accountability within government or these multinationals that are trying to push forward with these projects. And I just think they're poorly managed and no accountability. It's just disastrous.
Because it's one of Malcolm Turnbull's. It's his legacy, and many would say it's fingers. The big fat pudding fingers are in the trough, and with the pigs, and they're raping and pillaging, and they're going to make a lot of money. People are going to make a lot of money from this. Look at the carbon offsets. And we hear about the horses and other creatures doing the damage to the environment, which truly are just BS. If you look at the ISC, which you're familiar with, tell us about your thoughts on what Snowy 2.0 is doing to the environment in the Kosciuszko National Park.
Oh well, I understand they've been clearing off huge amounts of virgin forest and scrubland and impacting unique Australian wildlife. This is just completely unacceptable in this day and age. We cannot destroy the Australian environment in the hope that we can reduce carbon emissions. It's just absolutely ludicrous from a national point of view, from a strategic point of view, and from a natural beauty point of view. I just think all round it's just poor policy.
Ask you about the talking about the benefits, because we haven't got a whole lot of time. But what about the benefits? We have to be fair here. We need to understand those benefits. I'm looking. I really can't see a whole lot. If you could just educate me, because I need you to.
Well, I think the whole renewable plan has just been poorly planned, poorly executed. There is no accountability from government. There's multinationals and global corporations that are trying to get their snouts in the trough, in the Australian taxpayer trough. This has got to be done properly. It cannot be done in a ad hoc way, and we need a reliable energy system that's going to power the nations into the future. And I think people in Melbourne, all Australians, deserve to have a good, reliable, powerful electrical grid that can power a nation into the 21st and 22nd century. And fast-track renewables, the high cost, the extreme unreliability of renewables. This morning in the Wimmera, Murra produced absolutely no energy whatsoever, and Twiggy Forest is getting enormous government subsidies. This is just a crazy, crazy situation. It's just very unviable, and I think the only people benefiting are the billionaires and the global multinationals.
Yeah, and you have an election coming up shortly in Victoria. And if you look at Labor, the Labor are on the nose, but let's be realistic about it. They can still get in every state, federal elections too, because we just don't know what they're thinking about things in the big smoke. And even though Pauline Hanson is sort of shaking the apple tree, she would probably do more damage to establishment than she will in the major cities. Just do you have a good feeling that Labor will be exited from Victoria, or do you think?
Corruption in Victoria is monumental. We've seen Jacinta Allen fall on a sword as a result of the corruption and the lack of accountability. We've seen Lily D'Ambrosio, the Energy Minister, fall on a sword. Sonia Kilkenny is the Planning Minister, is totally complicit. We absolutely need Sonia Kilkenny out of the system, whether it's by her own choosing or whether it's by an election result, Ben Carroll cannot have clear air while we've got one of the trio that's responsible for the poor process, the poor planning that's been part of this fast-track renewable bill. We just absolutely have to resolve it, and if it's an election that's got to resolve it, so be it. Bring on November and let's clear the deck and let's get to a logical pathway forward for Victoria to become strong and a better place.
But you've had many chances before. When Dan the Man was in there, and the LNP barely managed to get a vote. Are you a little bit fearful this might happen again?
Well, elections are unpredictable, as you probably appreciate, and I do think that Melbourne people are sick of the crime, they're sick of the corruption, they're sick of the high debt load that's been forced upon Victorians. The suburban rail loop, which is another big build type project, could be just as corrupt as the big build. It's sort of filling in the Belt and Road, which was a Chinese originated plan. We need a plan for Australia. We need Australia to be a strong country, a strong nation with efficient infrastructure, not this poor process. The big challenge in Melbourne is that there's a lot of people on the take. A lot of people are relying on these projects to continue, and I think the corruption runs very deep in Melbourne.
Indeed. If somebody wants to find out more, and we do play your good morning as we take that part out, and the rest of it you make a lot of sense. And
Thank you.
My wife, she loves it. One day we didn't have you on, and she said, "What happened to Ross?" And she looked at me. So you are on at the start of our show every day, and I appreciate it. I think you do speak a lot of sense, and I think with your experience and just very real approach to what's happening around us, I appreciate it. My wife appreciates it, and everybody else does too. So thank you. If they want to get
that's fantastic. I'm pleased to hear, Mike. And agriculture is a viable and productive industry, and we cannot replace agriculture with a highly subsidised renewable industry. It just makes absolutely no sense for Australia. It's strategically the wrong decision. So we've got to have a better Australia.
Can you smell the stench of corruption?
Absolutely. Anytime I go past Spring Street, I can smell that stench.
You were in Canberra. You went into the Lions Den.
I did, and had a great time in Canberra, and we met a lot of politicians. And I must say, I really worry. It's a national overhead, and it's a whole city full of our national overhead in Canberra.
Did you wash your hands? Anyway, that's another thing. Sorry.
Yes, I did.
Ross, if somebody wants to get hold of you, how do they do that?
Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association. We've got a Facebook page, and we've also got a web page. So please listen in and contribute where possible.
Good on you, Ross. Ross Johns there. This is The Pulse.
Thank you.
A hoax about carbon dioxide in the climate has caused a global energy and
rain and storms continue in the west, mostly settled elsewhere. G'day, David from the Bureau here with a look at the weather across the country for tomorrow, Friday, August 28th. Let's take a look at the national map to start with, and the main feature is this low pressure system down here in southeastern WA. That's been bringing showers, rain and storms across much of southern Western Australia this week, and tomorrow's the turn of the far southeast. Elsewhere in the country, a weak cold front clips Tasmania and southern Victoria during tomorrow, but the rest of the country will remain dry and settled under this large high pressure system. Let's go around the grounds now, starting with Queensland, where it will be mild to warm and sunny across the vast majority of the state. Just one or two showers about the exposed parts of the east coast, the typical areas, and temperatures generally ranging from the mid to high 20s in the south up to the low 30s in the north. That's a couple of degrees above the August average temperatures, but we are close to the end of the month, so we're about to click over into warmer September average temperatures. Brisbane, a mostly sunny top of 25 degrees. For New South Wales and the ACT, some morning fog and patchy frost inland, and then a mild and sunny day pretty much statewide. For Sydney, a sunny top of 20 degrees. For Canberra, a mostly sunny top of 17. In Victoria, some morning fog and frost in the north and then sunny there. In the south, cloud increasing through the day. There's one or two bands of showers moving across from the west later in the day. For Melbourne, a shower or two and a top of 17 degrees. Showers in the afternoon and early evening, and then most likely clearing up for the footy after 7:30. For Tasmania, some showers mainly in the early morning as that cold front crosses the state, and mainly in the west, remaining pretty much dry in the east. Hobart, a top of 15 degrees. A cloudy day, 1 or 2 showers around in the early morning, but a dry day overall. For South Australia, mild and sunny across the eastern half of the state, just a little bit of cloud and maybe a morning shower or two down around Mount Gambier. And then in the far west, some showers and a few thunderstorms way out west there. There is the risk of damaging winds with severe thunderstorms in the very far west of the state. For Adelaide, a sunny top of 21 degrees. For southern Western Australia, dry and partly cloudy through the very far southwest, including for Perth, Bunbury and Busselton. And then as you head further east, the wet weather kicks in around this low pressure system, which will be centred on the southeast of the state tomorrow. So parts of the wheat belt and then much of the goldfields and the interior districts and the southeast coast can expect 5 to 15 millimetres of rain again tomorrow, with some locally higher totals in thunderstorms. The risk of damaging winds in severe thunderstorms in the far east as well. And that system, that rain-bearing system, has been quite generous. It's brought rain right across southwest Western Australia through this week, from when it started out down in the southwest Capes late Tuesday, and then gradually spreading east, bringing welcome rain to many areas. For Perth, mostly sunny top of 21 degrees tomorrow. And lastly, in the north, warm to hot and sunny conditions is the order of the day again across the north. Darwin, a sunny top of 34 degrees. That's all from us for now. If you need more information and the latest forecasts and warnings, you can always head to our website, our app and our social media channels. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
And welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Nice to have your company too, by the way. Just before we get into our next guest, I just want to go to our instant polls as I bring this up here. They're our official sponsor. Now, and before our next guest, I want to play a great track and an ode from Banjo Patterson. We played it the other day. Many requests to play it again, and I would like to play it again. If you want to increase your bottom line, boost your communication, that's with your frontline staff, and gather valuable data from your most important resource, your employees, then why not make a beeline straight to it, Instantpolls.online to learn more. This week's poll is on the Pulse. The poll is, do you believe the media coverage of bird flu in Australia is accurate? My humble opinion, it is not. Anything tied up with now, News Corp and the ISC, do not believe a word of it. Just use the QR code on our screen to vote. Each vote is secure and anonymous and verified by 2FA. The poll closes next Monday, 31st of August, and the result will be broadcast on the Pulse after 4 o'clock. The link is also published on our Facebook page. Share the link and ask your family and friends to participate. We had a lot of requests to play this again. It's an ode. It talks about the Brumbies in the First World War. Have a look at it. This gentleman is fantastic. He, along with myself and others, get quite emotional at what's happening to our heritage. And we need to fight back. The ISC, in my own opinion, is one of the greatest threats to this country because of the power they have. They are just an absolute bunch of evil bastards, in my own opinion. So I'll play this. Remind yourself that you are Australian. Whether you're from other countries, you are now Australian. This is our history. Not a great history in some cases, but it is our history, and it's made us what we are today. Now, what I'm seeing around is not indicative of the sacrifice that our parents and their parents and whatever went through. We need to show a little more respect, I think, to the history of Australia.
G'day, Trooper Cody and Steve with a light horse video. And in the past, I've tried to make these videos and I haven't been able to because I get too emotional. So we're going to see how we go with Banjo Patterson's The Last Parade. Now you've got to remember, Banjo Patterson wasn't just a famous Australian poet. He was actually around before World War I started. He wrote poems about horses and horsemen and bushmen before World War I started. And then when World War I started, he went to the Middle East with the very first contingent, the first shipment of horses. He went to the Middle East. He was there for the whole 4 years working at remount depots, which is where horses went to be decided if they were going to the artillery or to the light horse to be ridden. So he was around these wonderful horses for 4 years. And then, as you've seen in a couple of my other videos, we know what happened to those poor horses at the end of the war. And so Banjo wrote a poem called The Last Parade. With never a sound of trumpet, with never a flag displayed, the last of the old campaigners lined up for the last parade. Weary they were and battered, shoeless and knocked about. From under their ragged forelocks, their hungry eyes looked out. And they watched as the old commander read out to the cheering men the nation's thanks and the orders to carry them home again. And the last of the old campaigners, sinewy, lean and spare, he spoke for his hungry comrades. Have we not done our share? Starving and tired and thirsty, we limped on the blazing plain, and after a long night's picket, you saddled us up again. We froze on the windswept cheppies when the frost lay snow white. Never a halt in daytime, never a rest at night. We knew when the rifles rattled from the hillside bare and brown, and over our weary shoulders we felt warm blood run down. As we turned for the stretching gallop, crushed to the earth with weight, but we carried our riders through it, sometimes, perhaps, too late. Steel, we were steel to stand it. We that have lasted through, we that are old campaigners, pitiful, poor and few. Over the sea you brought us, over leagues of foam. Now we have served you fairly. Will you not take us home? Home to the Hunter River, to the flats where the lucerne grows. Home where the Murrumbidgee runs white with melted snows. This small thing surely, will not you give command that the last of the old campaigners go back to their native land? They looked at the grim commander, but never a sign he made. Dismiss! And the old campaigners moved off from their last parade. How bloody sad. You can't like the video, but remember the horses. Cheers. Subscribe, eh? Thank you.
They carried stockmen. They carried soldiers. They carried legends from Beersheba to the mountains of the high country. The thunder herd still rides. Skies and snow gums bow in winter light. 1,000 shadows cross the dawn, their wild hearts burning through the night. Their blood remembers campfire smoke, long dusty trails and stockmen's hands. The freedom of a younger world still running through this ancient land. Listen. Mountains know their language. Listen. The valleys speak their names. They are the thunder rolling beneath the southern sky. From Beersheba's fields of glory to the mountains standing high, no chains can hold them. No walls can tame them. The spirit of the light horse rides. They are the thunder, and the mountains know their names. Across the burning Sinai sands, they carry fate in steady hands. Through dust and fire they thundered on toward Beersheba's fateful dawn. Horse and rider forged as one, a rolling wave against the guns. The desert shook beneath their stride as Australia rose in pride. They are the thunder rolling beneath the southern sky. From Beersheba's fields of glory to the mountains standing high, no chains can hold them, no walls can tame them. The spirit of the light horse ride. They are the thunder, and the mountains know their name. And standing on the highest ridges, when the world below has gone to sleep, the ancient stallions face the darkness, guarding secrets they still keep. They remember every stockman, every drover, every mountain horseman, every charge, every rider who never came home, every horse who carried him there. Ride on. Ride on. Ride on. They are the thunder, the heartbeat of the southern land. The wild soul of Australia. The wild soul of Australia. The oath that time has never bent. When lightning crowns the mountain peaks and storm clouds gather dark and wide, the spirits of the old light horse still ride beside their stride. No king commands them, no empire owns them, for freedom runs within their blood, as surely as rivers shape the land. They are the thunder herd, and they still ride, and they still ride. From Beersheba to the high country, the Thunderherd still writes.
And welcome back to the Pulse. Coming up next, we'll talk to Robbie Barwick here. And also, we're going to talk to someone pretty special after Robbie. Robbie's very special too, by the way. He keeps telling me. But he is. He's a magnificent person. And thank you for Robbie for putting himself out. This is the Pulse.
So many places where they're using 1080 poison baits.
Yeah, it's an absolute travesty, mate.
It really is.
1080 baits, if you've seen what a 1080 bait does to a dog, it's one of the most horrific things you'll ever witness. And the second you see something like that, you'll be a big advocate for getting rid of 1080 baits. It's not the way to solve the problem with wild dogs and foxes and things like that.
On Sunday, August the 30th, I got a phone call from my husband. I wasn't here, I was out in Aramac staying with family. And he rang me very distressed and crying on the phone and told me that Tippy was dead. And he then described to me how that happened. He said he was inside, heard Tippy outside yelping, which progressively rapidly went to screaming, and he was thrashing him, throwing himself around. He went under my car, which is parked on the veranda in a carport, threw himself under the car and up under the wheel arch, obviously looking for sanctuary. Greg tried to grab him and got hold of his leg, and as he did that, he just dropped dead. So he rang me and told me about this, so I was obviously quite distraught as well. And then he had to go into town, into Bundaberg, to pick up for a pre-arranged appointment. And when he came home a couple of hours later, Faye, our Maremma dog, was also dead. So within a couple of hours, we're not sure, any time between 9:30 and midday is when she died on that morning. So yeah, Greg took them to bury them, and he took Ted with him when he buried these two dogs, and Ted was there with him. And after Greg finished burying them, he wouldn't leave. He just laid, he sat, moved around. He wouldn't leave the gravesite. So Greg had to literally pick him up and take him away. So he knew his mates were in there. So, yeah. Sorry.
1080 is not a humane poison, and despite people's claims that it is humane, we now recognise that that's not the case. It's not good enough to pretend to ourselves that it's humane and keep on doing the same old thing that we've been doing for years. There's no excuse to keep on using a poison that is not humane and that we know is not humane.
And welcome back to the Pulse. Robert Barwick is the National Chairman of the Australian Citizens Party. He's the party's media spokesman, contributor to the Australian Alert magazine and presenter of the weekly show, The Citizens Report, which I think it's called something different now. He'll pick me on that one. We'll talk to Robbie today about ASIO's powers and the rationale for and implications of the recent legislative changes. Robbie, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
It's all happening here. We have an absolutely magnificent system, and it's incredible. It's got a mind of its own. You've got no idea what we're doing here. I just got to get the guys to stop jumping from the ledge.
Come on, you're the man behind the curtain. I've seen you at work.
That's right. Look at those hands. Look at the eyes. The giveaway is that the government's proposed changes to expand and permanently retain the Australian Security Intelligence Organisations. That sounds like an oxymoron. Anyway, ASIO, which is called, we lovingly call them ASIO, they have compulsory questioning powers. Not great, is it?
No. And the person who said most forcefully they were not great is our Prime Minister. Back in 2003, when these powers were first debated, they were put up in a bill in 2002 after 9/11, and we were told that, look, yes, we have democratic standards in Australia and the rule of law and legal principles that we've always been told we need to uphold to protect ourselves from becoming like those other types of countries, those dictatorships, etc., those authoritarian countries. But look, we've got a terrorist threat. We have to do this. And no one can deny it. No one wants a 9/11. And so we need to give ASIO powers to be able to extract whatever information it needs to stop a terrorist attack. And Anthony Albanese gave a speech in March 2003 on this bill, and he started off, Mike, by quoting Hermann Goering, Hitler's Reichsmarshal, from the Nuremberg trials, where Goering said, you can talk anybody into accepting what you want, like a war, etc. All you got to do is tell them there's a threat, and this is the response to the threat, and they will always do it. They'll always accept it. And that was Anthony Albanese's insight into this kind of argument. And now it's a big deal to liken something to the Nazis. It's called Godwin's. There's a thing called Godwin's law, if you've heard of it. The first person to compare something to the Nazis loses the argument. But this is Anthony Albanese doing it. 23 years later, he has rammed a bill through Parliament that takes those original powers and expands them, makes them routine for ASIO to use as a matter of course, and was actually going to make them permanent, but our party got involved in fighting it and we forced them to drop that part. But they have nevertheless massively expanded these powers. And unlike back in 2002-3, when he had an opportunity to participate in the debate as the member for Grayndler, because the debate raged for about 15 months. That's how controversial these laws were at the time. Unlike then, they guillotined the debate in the Senate, and they only allowed 1 hour, and they took away what they call the committee process of putting a bill through, where the Senate goes through it line by line, and they ask the minister questions line by line. They took that all away, so there would be very little scrutiny of this bill, and that was rammed through last Thursday.
What are the provisions to question without a warrant, including people as young as 14? I would have thought you would have needed to have a warrant for that sort of a thing.
No. Well, no, technically there are warrants. The question is who signs the warrant. So normally a warrant has to be signed by a judge, and that's called the separation of powers. So the police are part of the executive function of government, and but when it comes to law enforcement and actually subjecting people to the punishment side of the law, you need to bring in the judiciary so that they actually approve. They assess what you're doing, and the judge can turn you down and say, no, you don't have the basis for a warrant, or yes, you do. So that's why you have, and look, that's a fairly fluid process. It's not very bureaucratic, really. Police have relationships with judges, etc. They get their warrants. It's just a natural step. That's who usually signs warrants. This bill says the warrant is signed by the Attorney General. Now, what that means is a politician is signing the warrant. And the politician, who is essentially ASIO's boss, now that is important, but I would argue the politicians in Australia are increasingly captured by ASIO, and I doubt you would have anyone outside of one or two members of Parliament, such as Andrew Wilkie and David Shoebridge, who would even question ASIO if they asked for a warrant. And so the Attorney General will just rubber stamp these things, and ASIO gets to use them as a matter of course.
And then there's the silencing of those being questioned. Were these provisions removed in the final version of the legislation?
Nope. No, you have no right to silence. So that's in the interrogation. You cannot be quiet. You have to answer the questions on pain of 5 years in prison, which is a very heavy penalty, right? So ASIO can just extract this information from you. Now, bear in mind, just before I get to the other part, you don't have to be a suspect, Mike. The ASIO can question anybody. You could be the brother or sister of someone who's been to a protest that someone else has tried to make a political issue about. And, we're getting used to, disturbingly, in Australia, a lot of people starting to question the right to protest, even though that is a fundamental right in a democracy. We saw it in COVID, and it's continued since then. So all you need to do is be somebody that ASIO decide they want information from, including a child as young as 14. So a 14-year-old girl could be grabbed off the street by ASIO and subjected to this kind of questioning. And if you don't answer the question, 5 years in jail. Now, if you tell anybody that you have been interrogated, then you also risk 5 years in jail. You have to be completely quiet about the fact you've been interrogated. So there's two things to think about there. One is that's just that's an unreasonable thing in practice anyway. But what if you're someone who's totally innocent, you've never done anything wrong, you are mistaken as someone who might have information. ASIO comes and interrogates you, and then they let you go after 24 hours because you've had nothing to tell them anyway. And they said you can't tell anybody. But your wife or partner was expecting you at a certain time and maybe already suspects you of having an affair or something, right? And you turn up late, you've broken your appointment, and you're asked, where have you been? And you can't say, right? And that's a bit silly. But here's the other one. What if you ever told a kid? What if it is a 14-year-old kid? You ever told a 14-year-old kid to keep a secret and keep it and be serious about it? Like, you can say, "Oh, you're going to go to jail for 5 years." They don't know what that means, right? These are just ridiculous to be applied to children, and that's why when it was first put up in 2002, Simon Crean, the leader of the opposition, accused. He just railed against that, and he said it's completely inappropriate, and he accused John Howard of establishing a police state.
I've just on the line. I've got what's your name, Gigi? Yes. Are you after a check from the federal government? Okay. And I'm sorry. Sent a message. Congratulations was the essence of it, but they wanted to get the check for helping them implement it. And I'm being quite facetious here, but it's that serious, isn't it?
Well, we in the debate, and I'd like to tell you a bit more about the debate because it was quite extraordinary, but it only went for an hour, and the only people who participated in the debate were the senators who voted no. And that was the Greens, Malcolm Roberts from One Nation, and Alex Antic, the Liberal, crossed the floor and voted no. And all of them, literally everyone who participated in the debate, all quoted Anthony Albanese from 23 years ago. Every single one. All the different parts of his speech, including the part where he said, these are the laws that are turning us into the countries that we say are bad countries and are our enemies. We are becoming those countries. That's what he warned in 2003. Well, we act all holier than thou on the world stage, Mike, right? When it comes to human rights, etc. We in fact use them as a weapon. Oh, look how great we are on human rights. Really? Look at the kinds of laws we've got on the books now.
So let me get this right. How many Greens are there?
12.
12, okay. And Malcolm's 13. Antics 14. Who was the other one?
There was a second. Yeah, there was a second Liberal across the floor, Andrew McLaughlin, and there was
ex-Liberal. You mean ex-Liberal?
No. It's not. No, the Liberal Party's not the Labor Party. You don't get kicked out for crossing the floor. That's a Labor thing. So for now, he's a Liberal, and then there were the other two crossbenchers, David Pocock and Jackie Lambie.
So we had 17.
Well, there was a bit less than that because I don't think all the Greens were there for the vote, right? So
they're out rolling their own.
It was about 12 or 13 no votes and about 26, 27 yes votes. And what's significant about that is there's 76 senators, which means a whole bunch of senators weren't there. And the ones who weren't there, Mike, were the coalition senators. No, not the two who voted no. The two across the floor were there. All the coalition senators who actually supported this bill were too cowardly to come in and vote yes on it. Now, that allows them to have it both ways. If they're in front of an audience that's anti the ASIO bill, they can say, oh, we didn't vote for it. If they're there in front of an audience that's pro the ASIO bill, they can say, oh, yeah, we made sure it got through. Because they did make sure. It was a dirty deal between Labor and the coalition to guillotine this debate and force it through. But because it was so toxic, we've run a pretty significant campaign for the last 6 months. You and I have talked about this bill a couple of times over that time, right? It became quite big. And I think, can I brag a little bit? I don't want to be too full of myself, but I'm not a genius, but I had a stroke of genius. And that was back in February when the House debated it, and I saw Tony Burke's contribution to the debate, the Home Affairs Minister, and it so disgusted me. I thought, this Labor Party's come a long way from 23 years ago when they voted against this. And I remember we were involved in opposing it then, right? And I remember quite well those days and that debate. And then I thought, I bet you in that debate, because Albo used to be quite a firebrand, I bet you he gave a pretty fiery speech. And I went and dug it up, and I was right. He gave a fiery speech, and it was the publication of that speech of the Prime Minister of today, 23 years ago, warning about this undermining democracy and denouncing this in no uncertain terms and likening it to the Nazis. That went viral everywhere. People were posting that video of Albanese drawing that comparison everywhere and just can't believe that he's the guy who's now expanded these powers. And so it became quite toxic. We did force them to drop the amendment that would have repealed the sunset clause, and what they intended initially, not just to expand them, but to make them permanent. These would have been normalized powers. So we did force them to keep the sunset clause, and so the bill will be reviewed in 3 years' time. But that's as much as we achieved. But because it was so toxic, the coalition stayed away from the final vote.
Incredible. But the coalition, I mean, the LNP, I have to say, it's smoke and mirrors. I find that with most things that are a bit controversial. Hang on, sorry, another call. Hang on. Hello? Yes. Herman Goering. Oh, you want to check too? On its way, thank you. I'm just a standard at this. And by the way, the same thing's happening in the UK. The new UK terror laws are going to crunch those of free speech, which we'll talk about in the next hour on the Protagonists with Basil Valentine, James Freeman, and I've got the other one. Another great guy. He'll be on too. It's really interesting. I think you see governments around the world, Western governments, becoming more like, I won't say China, because China is over-exaggerated in some cases, but are we more like the old-fashioned Soviet Union?
Or, and you could say that, or you could say what the Prime Minister said, Nazi Germany. I mean, that's the most extreme example you can give. Look, he did it. He did it for a good reason, and it is important. I think it's very important to stop making the comparisons to those known authoritarian countries. It's kind of pointless because it's actually those comparisons that we get told. See, don't compare us to them. We're doing this because we care about you. Unlike those dictatorships, right? So no, we've got to actually see what's happening here. When 9/11 happened, there was a coordinated operation through the Five Eyes. Remember, we later saw how it actually worked. You had the dumbest president in US history, or I thought he was until this current guy, sorry. But George Bush was a moron. That regime was run by Dick Cheney, one of the most sinister guys to ever be in power in a democratic country. And he had an agenda for war, not against the country that attacked them. That was Saudi Arabia, their very rich friend. He had an agenda to ram this through with the Israelis to destroy Iraq, but they had to keep the population in line, and so they passed the Patriot Act in America. All the Five Eyes countries rammed through this kind of legislation, and we were told it's for our security, it's for our safety. Now, the great Ben Franklin, one of America's founding fathers, right? He said those who give up liberty for security deserve neither. And I remember this was a big debate at the time, and it's a great quote from Ben Franklin. But because we're in countries that are based on principles where the individual has rights, right, and those rights are supposed to be protected by the state. It's the government that has checks and balances on them, right, not the citizens. But they flipped it all around, and then they've ratcheted down just relentlessly ever since. So what's interesting about this issue now, this furor over the ASIO bill now, Mike, is that we've succeeded in making it such a big deal. We've had more than 20 years of these kinds of laws. In 2015, Tony Abbott rammed through a bill that said journalists can go to jail for 10 years for reporting on an ASIO operation. This agency, ASIO, deserves maximum scrutiny, right? It let us down. We gave it these powers to protect us from terrorist attacks like Bondi. It knew the perpetrators of Bondi, right? But it was too busy going and doing other things to do its job. And instead of being held accountable, it's being rewarded with more powers by the government, and everybody's scared of it. Now, when you're a Sikh, remember who's that Democratic congressman in America, the New York Senate, Schumer. Remember Schumer? He was talking about Donald Trump a few years ago, and he said, if you cross the intelligence agencies, they have a dozen ways to Sunday to get back at you. When he was talking about the American intelligence agencies, our ASIO through Five Eyes is completely tied into that. And these people they see themselves as above government. And I did a little bit of history research. When Lionel Murphy raided ASIO in 1973, the ASIO officers got legal advice. Now, they actually got a lawyer to do this, a QC to do this, that said ASIO is outside of the jurisdiction of the Australian government. They're not accountable to the Australian government. Now, even though most lawyers in that disagree with that legal advice, that's how the ASIO officers saw themselves. And I can tell you, that's how they operate. They're not the ones that are bowing the knee to the government. It's the other way. And they have got more and more power. And in a democracy, when you can claim you're a democracy, but when you give so much power to a secret organization that acts above accountability, you are creating something else.
The other guy was Tony Greenstein, who was acquitted last week, charged with terror laws for three tweets. So, a very dangerous person, those tweets. But I'm just thinking and I am appalled. One, that Herman Goering called me, and two, that you said Anthony Abbott at one stage.
I did.
You did. You wanted to say Anthony Abbott, but I'm just appalled. I mean, and I'm making not light of it because it is terrible. Australia's changed. It has changed forever. We have the things happening in the environment, which are trillions of dollars. The stench of corruption is just enormous. Then we have our liberties. We're talking about let me tell you, we all know how great COVID was, how they could flex their muscles and stuff. Well, the bird flu, because they're looking for something to scare people. The bird flu, according to the ISC, which is run by an ex-union official and lobbyist, he knows everything. It's a truly magnificent F-wit. But he has said that it's crossed over to mammals. So you and I are going to start developing feathers. It's just like the old cow joke. The cow, the cow disease, mad cow disease. One cow says, are you scared about this mad cow disease? And the other cow said, no, I'm a dog. But it's the same sort of thing. So, it's crossed over to mammals. So you and I are going to develop feathers. Now it's crossing over to the wildlife. Now, what has the ISC been doing of late? That's right. It's been shooting them willy-nilly, pushing the New South Wales government and the Ukraine militia called the National Parks and Wildlife Service. They've been going out shooting everything. Something moved, shoot it. And so we have all this about Australia. It has changed. It has changed forever. And I don't give a shit what anyone says. This country is never going to be the country that you grew up in, or that I grew up in. It's changed. It has changed forever.
Well, we've gone down an authoritarian path, and it's kind of broad spectrum too, because there's it's like almost the whole spectrum of politics, except for our friends in the Libertarian Party who are anti-government to a fault, and like John Ruddock fights the good fight in the New South Wales Parliament. I'll call out to John. There's no government power he's not going to stand up to, even the stuff that I would consider reasonable. But it's like speeding cameras. Everybody knows the vast majority of speeding cameras are there for revenue raising, but nobody is going to change it, because the minute some politician says, okay, we're going to get rid of those speeding cameras, he'll be accused of putting road safety at risk, right? And they're not game to do that. And so if you can't reverse this stuff, you just keep going down and further down that path. Now, some of that is, and the other thing is, every time something goes wrong in Australia, you've got to have a law to stop it from ever happening again, right? And you know, and if you're not prepared to do that, then you're being soft on the problem, right? And it's just become habitual. The media play a role in it. The minute something comes up, they're looking for, who's going to be the person to take up the issue, and the next thing you know, some law will be passed through Parliament, will be named after a person, right? So and so's law because of this issue, and I don't want to be cynical about all of it, but it's become habitual. Some of it is less consequential than others. When there's a reason that you're supposed to learn about civics in education and the principles that undermine a democracy. In America, here's a bit of a theory I have, Mike. One of the reasons we know how corrupt America is because it actually has a written constitution with checks and balances that it has to adhere to, and it's actually probably the most transparent of countries. And that's why the corruption doesn't necessarily stop the corruption, but the corruption's obvious. In our systems that we've inherited from the British, where so much more gets done behind closed doors, right? We actually have a far less transparent system. But if you go back to the theory, you can learn, government theory, etc., and what went into the thinking behind the American Constitution. It was all about checks and balances. You constrain the power of government because that's how you keep the people free. And we've got that idea, that principle has become like unfashionable, right? And it's a real problem because, yes, I think government can do a lot and should do a lot, but a lot means build infrastructure and provide service for the people. That's what government should do, right? The rest is just getting out of control.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm very, very, very nervy about this country. And look at the calls that have come in. One from China, one from, where was the other one from? From the past, deep, dark Germany. And hang on, one second. Bibi, how the hell are you? You want to check too? Sorry. And next time I want to have a chat to you, my little observance. I want to have a chat to see how much influence Israel has in politics in this country, if you're up to it.
I'm up to it.
I'm sure you would be.
Let's just summarise it in one word: plenty.
Good on you. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go now. We're going to take our next guest, who's an amazing person, and just like you, Robbie Barwick. If somebody wants to find out more about what you do, how do they do that?
We are the Citizens Party, citizensparty.org.au. Our show is called The Citizens Report on YouTube, Mike, and will stay that way. We did flirt with a new name for 1 week, and we changed our mind. I'm available on most social media in some variation of @Robbie Barwick.
We need to see you here because the weather is getting better, and we have lots of libation points around here and the beach.
We've got to hit that scotch together sometime. You keep tantalising me.
No, but you want me to share it.
I do.
I'm not going to share my scotch.
Then I'm not coming.
I'm a cheap, and I'll buy you one. I'll buy a really cheap one. All right.
Okay.
Good on you, Robbie. Robbie Barwick here, tight as they might say. This is the Pulse.
The king may rule over land and sea. The lord may live right royally. The soldier ride in pomp and pride. The sailor roam over ocean wide. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The writer thinks, the poet sings, the craftsman fashion wondrous things. The doctor heals, the lawyer pleads, The miner follows, the precious leads. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The merchant, he may buy and sell. The teacher, do his duty well. But men may toil through busy days, or men may stroll through pleasant ways. From king to beggar, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The farmer's trade is one of worth. He's partner with the sky and earth. He's partner with the sun and rain, and no man loses for his gain. And men may rise, or men may fall, but the farmer, he must feed them all. God bless the man who sows the wheat, who finds us milk and fruit and meat. May his purse be heavy, his heart be light, his cattle and corn and all go right. God bless the seeds his hands let fall. For the farmer, he must feed us all.
Our mission at Pets of the Homeless is really simple, and that's to keep vulnerable people and their pets together when they're going through a tough time. Back in 2015, Pets of the Homeless started with a 20-kilo bag of dog food, made it into small packs, put it in a suitcase, and it was just me walking down the streets of Melbourne, one woman on a mission to make a difference. I would share the story on social media.
We've just hit 100,000 meals distributed today.
And the community really responded positively, and it just grew from there.
My name is Kent, and this is Hippo. She's everything to me. She's such a good girl. I got her at a time when I wasn't very stable. I'd come out of prison, I was homeless, but as soon as I got her, I just realised, oh my God, I can't let this dog go. And she's just my best friend. Hippo had a canine equivalent of an ACL injury. I knew there was something really desperately wrong. It was agonising seeing her suffering. My caseworker put me in touch with Pets of the Homeless, and Yvonne said that they could help, and I was just so overjoyed. I wouldn't have been able to get through that medical incident without their help. Like, it just would have been impossible.
That bond between us and our pet is very important, and when someone is going through a really tough time in their life, that bond becomes even more important, and that's what we're trying to protect at Pets of the Homeless.
Who's that?
My favourite quote is, "I always wondered why somebody doesn't do something about that. Then I realised I was somebody." My intention wasn't to actually start a charity, it was to help. It was just putting one foot in front of another, and that's how we got to where we are today. We're now in a warehouse. We have about 150 volunteers. We provide on average about 60 to 70,000 meals every single month. We have a network of about 73 community partner organisations that we work with. We've also taken in hundreds of pets into our foster care program, and we've just reached 2.5 million meals distributed.
In the time that I've been volunteering with Pets of the Homeless, I've seen the community grow, numbers of volunteers, pet food packing, got a brand new van, and we can reach more community pantries and reach more people. The community, whether it's the volunteers who are packing the food, who are foster caring, they've got so much love to give.
I think Pets of the Homeless gives people hope There can be a bit of judgment for people who are homeless and have a dog, but the reality is those dogs have got love and support, and it's so wonderful that Pets of the Homeless are able to help. It really makes a big difference in actual lives. It's really important work.
To the people who have supported Pets of the Homeless over the last 10 years, thank you from the bottom of my heart. There's so many kind people out there, and I'm just grateful for all of them. The work that we need to do is so huge and the need is growing, and we can't do it without the support of our community.
And welcome back to the Pulse. James Freeman is in the green room. I can see him looking exceptionally gorgeous, as they would say. He's got top of his head's cut off. So James, if you're watching, if you could just shrink down a little bit, because it's we can't see the hairline. Or is that on purpose? Not too sure about that bit. We're going to talk to our guest, Jimmy, from WA. He is not available at the moment, so we'll do that in the next couple of days. In the meantime, though, I want to play a song. I think it's just absolutely stunning. We had the writer of the song in today, and the writer was very good, and she's a wonderful person. This is her song, and hopefully we can have more conversations with her too. Sue, this is just a beautiful track.
Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mirror I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Brumby hoof prints etched for generations in the snow. I've watched the foals become the mares, the stallions old and slow. Here in the snowy mountains where my life began, across hills, ridges and open plains my fellow Brumbies ran. I've led them through winter storms, drought and summer rain, but I can't outrun what follows now. Shield my family from this pain. My ancestors crossed the oceans, but I was born upon this land. These mountains are my birthplace, the Snowies are my clan. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. Tell my foal I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye. Stay close beside me, little one. The thunder isn't rain. The sky itself is hunting us, and I cannot stop the pain. I gather those I love and turn to face the sound. Though every instinct tells me run, there's nowhere left for us now. These mountains hold our memories, our family history. If home is where you're raised, then this is where we should be. I don't know the reason. I hear the echo of final sound, deadly thunder overhead as I fall upon the ground. again and again. My heart grows quiet as bullets rain. I thought I had more seasons, more rivers left to roam, more sunrises with my Kosciuszko clan before the mountains called me home. Tell them I was born here, my grandfathers fought their wars. Remind them that this was our home. The snowy mountains were ours. Tell my fool I knew her fear. Tell my mare I heard her call. Tell my fool I tried to save them. Tell the wind how brumbies fall. Tell my fool I kept on running. Tell my mare I heard her cry. Tell the mountain I belonged here. Tell the wind I said goodbye.
Rain and storms continue in the west, mostly settled elsewhere. G'day, David from the Bureau here with a look at the weather across the country for tomorrow, Friday, August 28th. Let's take a look at the national map to start with, and the main feature is this low pressure system down here in southeastern WA. That's been bringing showers, rain and storms across much of southern Western Australia this week, and tomorrow's the turn of the far southeast. Elsewhere in the country, a weak cold front clips Tasmania and southern Victoria during tomorrow, but the rest of the country will remain dry and settled under this large high pressure system. Let's go around the grounds now, starting with Queensland, where it will be mild to warm and sunny across the vast majority of the state. Just one or two showers about the exposed parts of the east coast, the typical areas, and temperatures generally ranging from the mid to high 20s in the south up to the low 30s in the north. That's a couple of degrees above the August average temperatures, but we are close to the end of the month, so we're about to click over into warmer September average temperatures. Brisbane, a mostly sunny top of 25 degrees. For New South Wales and the ACT, some morning fog and patchy frost inland, and then a mild and sunny day pretty much statewide. For Sydney, a sunny top of 20 degrees. For Canberra, a mostly sunny top of 17. In Victoria, some morning fog and frost in the north and then sunny there. In the south, cloud increasing through the day. There's one or two bands of showers moving across from the west later in the day. For Melbourne, a shower or two and a top of 17 degrees. Showers in the afternoon and early evening, and then most likely clearing up for the footy after 7:30. For Tasmania, some showers mainly in the early morning as that cold front crosses the state, and mainly in the west, remaining pretty much dry in the east. Hobart, a top of 15 degrees. A cloudy day, one or two showers around in the early morning, but a dry day overall. For South Australia, mild and sunny across the eastern half of the state, just a little bit of cloud and maybe a morning shower or two down around Mount Gambier. And then in the far west, some showers and a few thunderstorms way out west there. There is the risk of damaging winds with severe thunderstorms in the very far west of the state. For Adelaide, a sunny top of 21 degrees. For southern Western Australia, dry and partly cloudy through the very far southwest, including for Perth, Bunbury and Busselton. And then as you head further east, the wet weather kicks in around this low pressure system, which will be centred on the southeast of the state tomorrow. So parts of the wheat belt and then much of the goldfields and the interior districts and the southeast coast can expect 5 to 15 millimetres of rain again tomorrow, with some locally higher totals in thunderstorms. The risk of damaging winds in severe thunderstorms in the far east as well. And that system, that rain-bearing system, has been quite generous. It's brought rain right across southwest Western Australia through this week, from when it started out down in the southwest Capes late Tuesday and then gradually spreading east, bringing welcome rain to many areas. For Perth, mostly sunny top of 21 degrees tomorrow. And lastly, in the north, warm to hot and sunny conditions is the order of the day again across the north. Darwin, a sunny top of 34 degrees. That's all from us for now. If you need more information and the latest forecasts and warnings, you can always head to our website, our app and our social media channels. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.
So many places where they're using 1080 poison baits.
Yeah, it's an absolute travesty, mate.
It really is.
1080 baits, if you've seen what a 1080 bait does to a dog, it's one of the most horrific things you'll ever witness. And the second you see something like that, you'll be a big advocate for getting rid of 1080 baits. It's not the way to solve the problem with wild dogs and foxes and things like that.
On Sunday, August the 30th, I got a phone call from my husband. I wasn't here, I was out in Aramac staying with family. And he rang me very distressed and crying on the phone and told me that Tippy was dead. And he then described to me how that happened. He said he was inside, heard Tippy outside yelping, which progressively rapidly went to screaming, and he was thrashing him, throwing himself around. He went under my car, which is parked on the veranda in a carport, threw himself under the car and up under the wheel arch, obviously looking for sanctuary. Greg tried to grab him and got hold of his leg, and as he did that he just dropped dead. So he rang me and told me about this, so I was obviously quite distraught as well. And then he had to go into town, into Bundaberg, to pick up for a pre-arranged appointment. And when he came home a couple of hours later, Faye, our Maremma dog, was also dead. So within a couple of hours, we're not sure, any time between 9:30 and midday is when she died on that morning. So yeah, Greg took them to bury them, and he took Ted with him when he buried these two dogs, and Ted was there with him. And after Greg finished burying them, he wouldn't leave. He just laid, he sat, moved around. He wouldn't leave the gravesite. So Greg had to literally pick him up and take him away. So he knew his mates were in there. So yeah, sorry.
1080 is not a humane poison, and despite people's claims that it is humane, we now recognise that that's not the case. It's not good enough to pretend to ourselves that it's humane and keep on doing the same old thing that we've been doing for years. There's no excuse to keep on using a poison that is not humane and that we know is not humane.
And welcome back to The Pulse and the Protagonists. Last week, Tony Greenstein was acquitted after a jury cleared him of inviting support for Hamas, a proscribed organisation in the UK. Now, thank God for juries. Tony was prosecuted over 3 posts he published on X on October 7th, 2023, none of which were dangerous. They were not inciting anything. Instead, the prosecution sought to make a political opinion criminal, make an example of a 70-year-old writer. For Tony, the toll of the 3-year ordeal has been harrowing, along with debanking, travel limits, media smear campaigns, and the threat of prison. Was this, along with other arrests of high-profile pro-Palestinian journos aimed at silencing dissenters? And what is the fate of other Palestinian activists? It's very plain that the climate in the UK is not a positive one for free speech and other civil liberties. I've got to welcome to our panel today Basil Valentine, Tony Greenstein, of course, the man of the moment, and also James Freeman. And nice to have some TNT people back. So clap, clap, thank you. First of all, Tony, just run us through briefly, summarise it, be succinct on the events and the found not guilty, Your Honour, verdict.
Yeah, well, I was arrested at my home in a dawn raid by about a dozen counter-terror police, December the 20th, 2023. and he told me it was for one tweet I'd posted a month before, and at 6:30 in the morning, I'm not in a position to really recall every single tweet. My only response was, "This is Orwellian," and they firmed it up. They went through my blog and they seized all my electronic equipment, of course, and then I was hauled before the court with an extremely hostile judge who removed, wouldn't allow virtually every bit of my evidence. It was a stitch up from the start. I was prosecuted under the Terrorism Act, 14 years maximum in prison. It needed the consent of the Attorney General, which he couldn't give. He had a conflict of interest because his family members serve in the Israeli army. So it went to the Solicitor General, Sarah Sackman, who was a dyed-in-the-wool Zionist, vice chair of the Jewish Labour Movement for 10 years, and had personally attacked me in an article 10 years previously. So we said, this is clearly, she is biased. The judge wouldn't have it, so he appealed to the Court of Appeal, and the Vice President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Edis, said no fair-minded person would possibly think that there was any bias involved. This was the surreal world that our judges live in. So on August the 18th, I was hauled up in court before a very hostile Judge Sarah Plashka, who is a Jewish Zionist from all accounts, and she did her best to try and secure a conviction. But I wasn't having any of it, and I openly defied her rulings, and I mentioned everything she didn't want me to mention. And I think the jury saw through that. And I decided my barrister can't take the final speech because he has professional guidelines and restrictions, and he won't do it. Barristers won't do it. So I took the final speech and appealed to the jury. And after just 2 hours, including a lunch break, they returned a unanimous not guilty verdict. So there you have it.
Very interesting indeed. Basil, what are your thoughts? And welcome too, by the way. We probably need your microphone off, Basil. That's the one that has turned me on. The microphone, that is.
Yeah, great to be back on the pulse, Mike. First of all, 10 counter-terrorism police officers to arrest a septuagenarian writer, absolutely ridiculous. This is indicative of the way Britain has been descending into an authoritarian state for some time. Same thing happened to Sarah Wilkinson, another pro-Palestinian journalist. In her case, the urn containing her mother's ashes was knocked over in the course of the police raid, and her mother's remains desecrated. Why on earth would it take 10 counter-terrorism police officers to arrest somebody over something they posted on X? I mean, if you were talking about genuine terrorists and there was the possibility of explosive materials, weapons, armed insurrectionists or something, well, then perhaps the case could be made for 10 police officers raiding somebody's home, but not when it's one older gentleman and it's for something that it just involved tapping on his phone or a keyboard. In that case, if the government want to continue with these ridiculous prosecutions, and I hope that Tony's case means that they won't, well, you could ask him just to simply appear at the police station, something like that. So, we have to ask what kind of intimidatory tactics are being employed here. Moving forward, it's great that Tony won, obviously. Let's hope it sets a precedent. This is the key thing. A lot of British law is governed by precedent. And, obviously it's going to vary from case to case, going into the minutiae of what people have said. But really, we mustn't have any more of these vexatious prosecutions for opposing genocide. But we'll come on to wider aspects of that later.
And James Freeman, love to welcome you too, also to the back to the TNT almost. Fingers crossed, who knows? But James, what are your thoughts on what has transpired?
Yeah, thanks for inviting us onto the Pulse, Mike. Great to be back. Look, things I think is really sliding in the UK. It's very, very worrying what's going on at the moment in terms of free speech, but tyrannical sort of overreach by government. And it's no irony that it was actually the Blair government, another Labour government, which brought in the Terrorism Act back in 2001. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? That people that are simply taking an opinion, a political opinion, are being arrested under the Terrorism Act. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's supposed to be for people that are trying to blow us up or take down our system of government. I mean, I would argue, to sort of turn it around, that ministers, UK ministers, should be prosecuted under the Terrorism Act. I mean, if you look at the all of this immigration and the people invading the country at the moment, and all of the rapes and attacks that are going on, the COVID injections. I mean, if you look at the definition of what terrorism is under the Act, serious violence against a person creates serious risk to the health and safety of the public or a section of the public. And then Section 3 of that is for the purposes of advancing a political, religious or ideological cause. I would argue all of that fits to decisions that ministers are taking in government. And I just, it really is worrying. You know, we've seen the likes of this going on in Canada, Australia. It seems to be all Five Eyes countries where this is going on. And it is very concerning, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think it's ramping up in this country. We have it's all over the government website, well, not all over it, but you can find it quite easily. That 2030 thing is going to be a lot different than they are now, which we were talking about in the days of TNT, led by you and Basil, of course. All you wanted was a wooden spoon. The government would have given you that in no time. So I appreciate what you did then. Tony, tell me, do you think you were made an example of, and which I think you were? Why would they do that? What was the example to be made of?
Yes. Can I just first say, in response to James, that I don't accept the terminology or the idea that Britain is being invaded by immigrants. This is a bogey used to distract people's attention from the much wider problems in society. The transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich, the attack on benefits and all the rest of it. Immigrants and migrants come to this country because we go to their countries. It's no accident that refugees are from Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, all the places we wage war. And as long as we wage war in the Middle East, we will bear the consequences.
Can I do you mind, Tony, if I just butt in and just give my response to that? I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, you know, the Iraq war, nobody wanted that in this country, and it definitely has impacted, you know, that sort of made people want to come to this country. But there's no denying that the government and, you know, the wider globalist agenda is to bring people in from cultures which they know are not, don't align with ours. They know that these people are going to, well, I mean, they're putting over 1,000 men in these camps, right? Young men, no women at all. They know what's going to happen when they do that. So I get what you're saying, and you know, but these people are not refugees. They're not fleeing wars, and our government is doing this on purpose, rightly, like you said, because they want to disrupt. They want to create confusion, but they also want to, you know, part of that confusion is creating violence here in the UK. Thank you for letting me butt in there, Tony.
Yeah, well, I don't agree. when my grandparents came to this country, much the same was said, because of course the men came first and the women and children came after. So there is really no difference. And I've looked at the parliamentary record of the debates in the early 20th century, and the same things were being said then that are being said now. It's complete distraction. Refugees should be allowed to work from day one. That would get over keeping people in camps. There are real problems in society. I mean, global warming, for one, the use of fossil fuel. I mean, there are a multiplicity of problems, not least the growth of billionaires when people are getting poorer. And of course, now we have the Iran war and all the consequences of that. So I just don't accept, and I really don't think we should even talk about invasion. These are human beings. They're not waging war on us. And as for cultures, well, I defy you to say what a British culture is, because culture has always changed, because Britain is a land of immigrants. It doesn't have a unique culture, fortunately. And I think the culture we have is enriched by those who come in. But to go back to your point, the original question, yes, I mean, I was singled out. There were 9 individual complaints by Zionists about my tweets, which were supporting October the 7th. I never made any bones about the fact that Palestinians have the right to resist when it's their country which has been invaded, and that is an invasion, the Zionist invasion, and all they've suffered. But what I said was, that doesn't mean I support Hamas, because politically I don't support Hamas. But I support their right to resist, and Hamas were part of that resistance. And that's what got the backs up of the Zionists, who made all the complaints of the police. And of course the police acted as their messenger boys. And then at the trial they tried to prove that I was a supporter of Hamas. So I pointed to all the blogs I'd written. But then the judge said they couldn't go into the jury bundle. I have no idea why or what her rationale was, but she was a typical specimen of the vicious, sneering judge of old. I mean, the caricature of a judge. And I determined on a very simple policy. I would ignore what she said. When she interrupted, I barked back. So she soon shut up. And then I took the closing speech. And she'd warned me before that she would intervene. So I pointed out that the Guide to Legal Practice, Archbold, which goes back to the early 19th century, specifically says a judge should not intervene. If she's got something to say, she should wait till the summing up. So for 50 minutes, and it was 20 minutes longer than I planned, I addressed the jury and said, well, I'm in your hands, but here's the precedents. Do we value free speech? Or do we not? And I quoted various judges and jurists and people like Benjamin Franklin, who said if you want to destroy the liberty of a nation, you destroy the freeness of speech. And I quoted Orwell and others. And as I say, it was really record time when I was taken unawares. The jury's back. I mean, I thought, what? And then the judge, before the jury issued its verdict, she said she'd previously invited the prosecution to initiate contempt of court proceedings, and they declined. So she said, on reflection, I have decided not to, because these were just the ramblings of a sad old man. I think the sad bit is my invention, but an old man. So I thought, because she then said, I don't believe it had any effect on the verdict. So I thought, oh God, maybe they have found me guilty after all. Because usually when you have a quick verdict, it's not guilty, but not always. So I listened with bated breath, and they were asked, the foreman, what, have you reached a verdict? And if so, what is it? And not guilty, he said in quite clear terms. And boy, that was a relief, you know, when when you're looking at 14 years imprisonment, these things matter.
Basil, what's your thoughts? Because I can see
I
you.
want to know. I want to know if Tony walked up and down delivering his closing
No, I
speech.
had a plinth. I would have liked to have done the old Perry Mason, if you remember him.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's what I was picturing.
Not quite that. I was semi-reading from a speech. It's the first time I've ever done that, because I do usually speak off the cuff. But I thought I have to make sure I don't forget anything and have a script and keep to it. But the reason it was longer than I thought was because I did ad-lib throughout. So I'm waiting for the transcript because it differs from the speech. I can't remember all of the things I said and so on. But no, I didn't walk up and down. But I looked at the jury and could see that they were melting and warming to what I said. And the judge, I could also see, was quietly fuming. So she wanted to intervene, but I think she felt that if she did, it would look even worse with the jury, given her machinations throughout the trial. So, yeah, I mean, it came out well. As you say, thank God for the jury, because the jury is the only independent element in the British Constitution. Judges they consider themselves independent, but they're about as independent as a dog on a leash. They have 2 or 3 inches room, but they don't stray from the mainstream executive line. And that's the reality.
On a serious note, just yesterday, the Trump administration has declared Palestine Action a global terrorist group, which is absolutely extraordinary. And they've done so because the UK Labour Friends of Israel governments that we currently have given them license to do so. One of the first things Andy, I get it, Burnham should have done was to immediately reverse the prescription of Palestine Action, which has become completely absurd. I know you've had a run-in with the law through your activities with Palestine Action, Tony. I was at one of the big protests in September when hundreds of people were arrested for simply sitting on the grass in Parliament Square holding signs, including the Reverend Sue Parfitt, who's well into her 80s. But it doesn't really matter how old you are or what you do for a living. The conflation of support for a direct action group with terrorism is scurrilous, is the only way to put it. But what it does is it speaks to the strength of the Israel lobby in the UK, because it's they who were pushing for this. There were numerous documented meetings between representatives of Elbit Systems, one of the biggest Israeli arms manufacturers based here in the UK, and government ministers. And it's very clear that the government were pressured into going along with this prescription. Indeed, there were also meetings between Israeli officials talking about the problem of Palestine Action and what could be done about it. So given that Britain actually has an obligation under the Geneva Conventions to prevent genocide and has been doing quite the opposite, has actually been enabling it, we've ended up in a truly inverted world. And in your country, Mike, I've just seen that the Egyptian comedian Bassem Youssef who's a particularly adept critic of Israel. He's been barred from entering the country, but 40 Israeli army soldiers are being allowed to run in the upcoming marathon, many of whom may be war criminals.
Yeah,
what on earth is going on?
Well, they're doing that because if they weren't allowed in, they wouldn't be able to spy on Australians. So it obviously makes a lot of sense. To know what you mean by that, Basil. That's another panel, actually. You want to see how powerful the Israel or Netanyahu or Israel is.
Well, I've been following the Gillian Siegel's so-called anti-Semitism inquiry in the States after, and it's absolutely ludicrous what's being said. I mean, there are a few sensible voices, but for the most part, it just doubling down on this endless conflation of criticism of what the Jewish anti-Zionist Chaim Brashith called the militarized vampire of Israel with the wider Jewish community. And yet, as we all know, more and more Jewish people are turning against Israel, particularly in the diaspora. I mean, Tony, you're at the forefront of this. Corporate media simply does not acknowledge the existence of Jewish anti-Zionists, let alone give them any platform.
We here we have, if you want to see how powerful the Israel lobby is, or Israel is, if you look at the One Nation, which is the party that's come a bit like Reform, cross between Nigel and Trump. So you have the next Stephen King horror movie coming out with those two playing the combined Trump and Farage. But if you look at Pauline Hanson, who's the front runner there, she has banned one media and replaced it with her almost official media, and it's Rebel Media and Rebel News, and the person that is covering it is a guy called Avi Yemeni, who I refer to as Avi Yemeni. And he is an ex-IDF soldier, very pro-Israel, and he's the one that has access to Pauline Hanson more than anybody else. And you can move forward and you can see where I'm taking this. Then you look at the Labor Party and look at the official opposition being the LNP. They're all controlled by a particular country, but that's another conversation. Otherwise, we'll be here forever, and then I'll have to slash my wrist because it's very depressing. And as you've said before, we do need TNT back for those very reasons, but who knows? I want to go back to Tony for a second. The use of terror law is quite terrifying, to say the least. In your case, you got the whole lot of everything. You got your banking, travel limits, all that sort of warm, friendly outreach from the government and your justice system. Tell us about that and what you really couldn't do.
Well, the bail restrictions were minimal. It was not much I couldn't do, but there was a systematic attack on my banking. I'd been with Nationwide over a quarter of a century, and they said it was regulatory reasons they were closing my accounts, but wouldn't give any reasons, because if you tip off someone who's laundering money, then the bank itself gets heavy penalties, you can get including imprisonment. The same happened with First Direct Bank. I'd been with them 33 years. 3 years less than the actual bank itself had been in existence. HSBC closed a joint account with my wife, and then Santander presently has frozen my accounts. That's for charity I run, and associated accounts. And one savings bank, Kent Reliance, again froze our money, though fortunately we got them to close the account so we could put the money where it was safer. So there's been a systematic attack on banking, and it's not so much the physical restrictions, it's the fact you have something looming over you for nearly 3 years. It means you can't plan, because you can't be certain of the verdict. So I couldn't plan anything after August the 18th. And of course it weighs on your mind. Naturally, you can't help but think about it. I mean, I buried myself in activity and in honing a speech that I would deliver. I mean, that was my firm and fixed intention, and nothing my barrister or solicitor said would change my mind, because I knew I could say what they couldn't say. So that was really the sum total of it. If I can comment about the wider Israel lobby and so on. I think there's a great mistake. It is a great mistake to imagine that British policy or Australian policy or whatever United States is because of a powerful Israel lobby. Because you have to ask, where does that lobby get its power? And the history in Britain, with the Balfour Declaration, etc., was that the British government, Christian Zionists, forced Zionism on British Jews, and the same throughout the world. Israel is seen as a strategic asset, and in the words of Biden, if Israel didn't exist, it would have to be created. Israel is the rabid attack dog of US and Western imperialism, and we must get the relationship right, because otherwise we imagine our governments will follow a different path. We know the United States is on the war path. Cuba, Venezuela, trade war with Canada, you name it. Imperialism is a pretty nasty beast, and Israel is simply part of that. The US could reign in Israel tomorrow if it wanted, but it's quite happy for Israel to intimidate its neighbours. That is the real problem. It's a problem of imperialism, not just Israel. Israel is a manifestation, a nasty little state which has to go. No problem with that. But Christian Zionism predated Jewish Zionism by 4 centuries. It was part of the Reformation almost. The idea that Jews should return back to Palestine, which was an anti-Semitic idea because it assumed they didn't belong in the first place. So I really do think we should get away from the Israel lobby. When it's called out, its power can wither away. Like in America now, with that election in Michigan, it was defeated, and it can be defeated. It may seem powerful, but when confronted, its power can wither away. But Trump bans Palestine Action not because of the Israel lobby. The same reason he's banned TEVA, which barely exists, and Palestine Action doesn't exist as an international phenomenon either. Why? Because it's a threat to the arms industry and the lobbyists and all of that, the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower identified. So I just think we have to get these things right and not upside down.
Just, James, I'd like to have your views on what Tony has just said, but just to mention the lobby and Pauline Hanson, her very dear friend is her dear friend.
I don't know who. Sorry, I don't know who Pauline Hanson.
Pauline Hanson's One Nation. She leads One Nation in Australia, and and has like 31 or 32% of the of support. And James, just looking at what one of her dear friends, I won't mention her name because she sues everybody, has suggested that Australia make available at no charge a very large chunk of land so they can make their bombs here. And again, Basil, you can see where I'm going there. And I won't mention her name because she sues everybody, and I'm not going to be sued. I've had enough of that. Actually, I haven't been sued by anyone for a long time. Must change it, I think. James, what do you think about? And I know that you have grave doubts about the future of the UK as it stands, and I bet you'd love to hop on a plane and head off to Tahiti or somewhere.
Well, firstly, I mean, it's no secret that the Israeli lobby is huge, isn't it? I mean, AIPAC in the States, the amount of money, and of course, Israel is the only foreign country, that is allowed to lobby politicians directly in the US with money and all of that. So there's no question about the power of the Israeli lobby. One thing I do want to say, though, and because obviously this whole story is about the overreach of government using terrorism laws, but there's also another really important story here, particularly with the UK, and that's about jury trials. That was the first thing I thought when I saw Tony's success in the court, that it was a jury that found him not guilty. And of course, this Labour government has already had one attempt at trying to remove juries from all but the most serious cases, and I'm assuming, I mean, I don't know, it's not my area of expertise, but I'm assuming that they would include terrorism laws under this. So thank God for jury trials. I mean, it's an ancient right that goes all the way back 800 years to the Magna Carta here in the UK, and the Labour government wants to get rid of them. And you can see why, because, what Tony's talked about in terms of the judge's approach, her refusal to allow certain evidence to go through, and basically just trying to stitch the whole thing up. Imagine if there was no jury and it was just decided. I think the plan was to have the judge and another judge, both paid for by the government, so not biased at all, deliberating and judging and actually, coming to the conclusion whether he's guilty or not. I think it was, I think it's obvious how this trial would have gone if we'd not had a jury. So thank God for juries. And I'm hoping that Burnham now, they haven't said anything on this, but it's been quietly sort of put to the side. But I'm hoping that that's just dropped now. But we'll see. We'll see.
Basil, what do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, jury trials, as Tony said, are the only genuinely independent element of the entire British Constitution, and they can deliver verdicts which are very awkward for the government. It remains to be seen whether they take this one on the chin, as they should do, and drop the trials of some, I think it's up to 3,500 activists now due to be prosecuted, for holding up signs saying they oppose genocide, they support Palestine action, because there's no reason why. I saw somebody saying only last week, I think it might have been David Miller, if you take a random sample of 12 citizens in Britain, at least 3 or 4 of them are going to find somebody not guilty of anything to do with terrorism for holding up a piece of paper in support of a direct action group and opposing what has been the worst deliberately engineered humanitarian catastrophe in my lifetime. I mean, the problem with all this is as well that all the oxygen in the room gets taken up with trials like Tony's, with things that should never have happened in the first place. And what we are stopped from centering is the suffering of the Palestinian people, particularly in Gaza, where conditions have been very deliberately and intensively engineered to be as hellish as possible. Children are being murdered on a daily basis. It's months since any hostages were returned. I mean, Israel apologists were saying, oh, just return the hostages, it'll all stop. Well, there's been a so-called ceasefire in place for months, but Israel is just simply addicted to murdering people. Ben Gvir said he thinks they ought to just cull the population by 30 or 40 indiscriminately every day. I mean, this is absolutely maniacal stuff, and this is where our attention should be focused. And unfortunately, it isn't. We're here talking about a trial that should never have happened in the first place. What we should be doing is talking about how we can dismantle the apparatus diplomatically and militarily that is enabling Israel to inflict so much suffering and misery, seemingly with alacrity, on the beleaguered population of Gaza. I mean, they've even come out this week and said that they'll bomb anybody flying a kite. Now, flying kites is a long-standing Palestinian tradition. It represents freedom in the air, at least, even if there isn't any on the ground. And because a couple of kites became detached and strayed out of the designated kill zone, the cage in which Palestinians are being kept, the homicidal psychopath Israel Katz said, all right, no more of that. This is what we should be focusing on, rather than the specious nonsense dreamt up by the British government. So they've got to drop all these Palestine action trials, because it's a complete waste of time and money. It's an abuse of the judicial system. It's completely anti-British, and I'm sure even Tony and James would agree that it's completely anti-British. And it's going to result in a total farce, because you might get the odd jury convicting people, but you'll get far more juries not doing so. So
I have to interrupt and tell you, they will not get a jury trial because they've been tried under Section 13 of the Terrorism Act in a magistrate's court, maximum 6 months imprisonment, not Section 12 as I was charged. So they're never going to see a jury.
Right. Well, I don't know the state of the bench these days, the beaks as they used to be called. But what I have seen is invitations for just about anybody to become a magistrate. Adverts online, if you've got some spare time, become a magistrate. It used to be something that people did, retired headmasters and, the supposedly wiser old heads. But I think these days they'll take just about anybody because they're so short of magistrates. So it'll be a total lottery what you get, who you get as your magistrate.
Can I ask you, Tony, are you able to get compensation from this inconvenience?
It is highly likely that I am going to initiate proceedings against the CPS or the Crown for a malicious prosecution, wrongful arrest, and whatever other else I can claim. I'm already doing it for one arrest because I was arrested in October 2024 for comparing Israel to Nazi Germany, and I've just been arrested again. I mean, I was arrested earlier this year for having a sign globalising intifada, so I already have solicitors onto it, so I will be asking them to initiate proceedings because I've got quite a lot to claim anyway. They stole my equipment, and all they returned it. Computers 3 years old aren't worth much, and I had to replace the equipment. So, I mean, there will be a bill, and I intend to pursue it because it has to be done to make it more difficult and more expensive for them next time. So, yes, this will no doubt drag on for a couple of years at least, I guess.
James, the Burnham Andy announced in July 26 that the government is considering reversing plans to remove jury trials for crimes carrying sentences of under 3 years. Do you think that will happen? What's the short time as it is, but a huge impact? What's your thoughts on the difference between Starmer and Burnham?
I don't think there's a lot of difference, to be honest with you. He's come in trying to give the impression that, I mean, he's using the same tactics as Starmer did to get elected in the first place in the general election, which is just saying, well, we're going to change. That word, if you listen to his speeches, the amount of times he uses the word change, and all of the things that he's talked about since he's come in have been really, really petty little things. When it's like, well, the Titanic's sinking, isn't it? And he's moving around the deck chairs, talking about things like raising the cap on bus fares, which they made a massive thing on that, which it was Labour that put the cap up in the first place, and they've just brought it back down. Then I think they took the VAT off energy, which is about £45 a year, somewhere in that vicinity. So, and he's not really talked much about the issues that the country is worried about. I mean, the constant gaslighting, because, he talks about cost of living all of the time, and yet it is actually government policy that is having a massive effect. Obviously there's external factors to do with the Iran war and, fuel prices and all that. But energy costs here, they're the highest in the world, in the Western world. And a lot of that is to do with basically hidden taxes, net zero taxes. He said that he would consider dropping the jury trial, but then he's not said anything since. what I mean, the last time I was on with you, Mike, I did predict that they're going to try and call a general election. It'll all come down to polling, but I think that's the plan. They want to call a general election this autumn and get another 5 years term. I think if, God forbid, if that happens, it'll all just come back. They're just parking it for the moment, So the fact that he hasn't actually, he's just said, well, I'll consider dropping it. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything, does it? And
No.
he's not mentioned it since. I don't think there is a lot of difference between. I mean, look, they've changed the front head, the figure, the leader, but it's all the same criminals that are in the cabinet. We've got. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. We've got a minister that was in charge of corruption that has now got an arrest warrant put out for her by Interpol because she committed fraud in another country across the world. We've had a housing minister that dodged a tax on. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And all of these people that were in the Starmer government that have made such a mess of things over the past couple of years, well, they're all back. So I think that's your answer, really. There is no difference. And I think that Burnham wants to give the impression that this is a different government. But if they win that general election, then that'll be it. It'll be double Starmer. They'll be double down on everything that Starmer did, and it'll be a lot worse. So, so yeah.
What do you think, Basil? I'm a bit surprised that there will be an election this early from Andy. How do you think, first of all, do you think there will be an election from Andy? And who will win? Will it be Andy or Nige?
Well, it's the first I've heard of it. James keeps his ear very close to the political ground. So, you may be right. I was very surprised when Rishi Sunak went to the country when he did, because it was quite obvious the Tories were going to lose and lose badly. Although people from outside Parliament can say Burnham has no mandate, while he's got a majority of hundreds of MPs, then it isn't really in his interests to go to the country, although he may want to exploit the so-called Burnham bounce. What you're looking at really is a situation akin to a long-running West End play where after a couple of years, one or two of the actors are changed, but the play carries on. They just refresh the cast. So the script is completely unchanged. You just get a different voice, different face delivering the words, because that certainly seems to be the case with Burnham. I haven't detected any meaningful policy shifts. With respect to the Middle East, there are murmurings that he's going to sanction the illegally occupied territories in the West Bank because, of course, the E1 settlement block expansion will finally lay to rest the myth of the two-state solution, which is the fig leaf that the British government and European governments, theoretically, I think still the United States government, although that's a moot point, that's the fig leaf that they cling to in terms of their sort of so-called long-term peace process. So, that won't go anywhere near doing what's required. That'll all be completely ignored by the Tel Aviv regime. You can bet on that. So we're really, in terms of any meaningful difference, to go back to my metaphor of the West End play, the new actor might project some of the lines differently, but they're going to be the same lines. Yeah. You might put the inflection in a sentence in a different place, and its facial expressions may be different, but apart from that, there'll be no change.
Tony, what do you think?
I don't know whether there will be a general election. My intuition is there won't be, but I honestly don't know. What I do know is that Labour Together put Starmer in, and Labour Together took him out and put Burnham in. So the only real difference is that there's a change of face, and that Burnham is a remotely human being, whereas Starmer really gave the appearance of being a human robot, and his time was up because it was clear that every reset he had made no difference because his policies remain the same. I agree with both speakers. I mean, there's no change of policy. He's talked about jury trials, juries not being abolished, but there's been no firm commitment. I suspect that the policies, the proposals of Lammy are dead because they are remarkably unpopular. People like juries. Why shouldn't you? Because it means that the common person has a say in the justice system. So they're hated by judges, of course, and are hated by politicians who want to see their opponents locked up. But they are the lamp that lights the liberty, as it were. Without it, we will be a much darker place. So we're going to have to fight. I might add, if there is an election, I don't think Burnham will get a majority. And
So
therefore,
are you saying Nigel might be the next Prime Minister?
no, I'm not saying that. I think Nigel has blown it. He's been seen to be corrupt, taking £5 million and not being able to explain it away. And now the proposals to abolish disability benefits. It's quite clear they're a party of the right and the party of the rich billionaires that support them. So I think reform has got in serious trouble because politically it's really no more than a right-wing Tory party.
So what, Rupert then? Rupert will be Prime Minister?
No. He's dead.
You got to have someone.
Well,
Wilson, is he still alive?
Well, it may well be that Burnham will forge a coalition. I think there will be no overall majority. That's what I mean. It's quite likely Burnham will emerge as leader of the largest party because Kemi Badenoch also doesn't seem to have made much progress. The Tory party is fighting with reform over many constituencies. So it could be a Liberal pact. It's quite possible.
Interesting. James, we are running out of time too. We got about 3 minutes left. James, I know that you had pasted all over your bedroom, ceiling and everything to the Nigel, and then he disappointed. And you can see on your ceiling just the sticky tape marks you had. But so just quickly, who do you think we prime, if there is that election, who will be Prime Minister?
I've got to agree with Tony. I think Nigel has pretty much blown it, really. He's divided. He's helped to divide the right. That's the problem. One of Nigel Farage's flaws is that he tends to fall out with people, and it becomes quite acrimonious. And there's lots of examples. I mean, it wasn't actually him that set up the Brexit Party. It was I forget her name now, but she. There was a lady that set it up and they fell out and she's now gunning for him. But when he does fall out with people, it does end up bad, like Rupert Lowe. I mean, Restore now are looking at sort of 8 to 10%. Then you've got the Tories. So the right is totally divided at the moment. I think the reason I predict that Labour are certainly going to try and call a general election, whether they do will depend on the polling, is because of these factors. I mean, Nigel Farage's still got to face the Standards Committee over this 5 million. There might be another by-election. All distractions for him and reform. You've got Restore, which have got the backing of Elon Musk, which are growing, and Kemi Badenoch's doing quite well. So for Labour's point of view, I think this is the best time because things are only going to get worse in the UK with the economy and everything else. So waiting until 2029, I just think it won't wash. And the other thing is, Burnham, clearly Labour want to make some big changes in the country. They haven't got a mandate for all the stuff that they jury trials that came out of nowhere. Digital ID, they don't have a mandate for any of this. So they definitely want to go to the country. Whether they do or not, I think will depend on what the polling says in the autumn. But that's my prediction, is that before the year end, unless it looks like they're definitely going to lose, I think we'll see a general election this year.
And Basil, who will be Prime Minister?
Well, I'd have to concur. It's most likely to be honest Andy Burnham, the man of the people. You know, Farage has blown it. I mean, that sort of circus that he put together in Clacton a few weeks ago, resigning his seat and then winning the by-election, where a man with a dustbin on his head, well, stood in the run-up. People thought he had a chance of beating him. He got Count Binface got 9,000 votes, but on a serious note, James is right with the right split three ways, and talk of alliances between Reform and the Tories, between Reform and Restore, but none of them coming to fruition, not just because of personal animosity, but also fundamental ideological differences. Then before 2029, when some of those might be resolved and there might be alliances, you might as well go to the country with the right-wing vote split three ways, because then Labour could possibly even get as many seats as they've got now, or even with a third of the vote. You know, even if he doesn't improve on Starmer's decidedly tepid vote. What we're in danger of, I just want to make this final point though, is the rewriting of political history, because Jeremy Corbyn in both 2017 and 2019 got far more votes. More people put an X in the box next to the Labour candidate than they did for Keir Starmer. Yet when Starmer made his resignation speech, he made some really disgraceful remarks about having inherited a Labour Party in disarray and all that. And, you know, just as Margaret Thatcher would have lost the 1983 election if it hadn't been for the Falklands War, we end up with history being rewritten by the winners, and that's very dangerous.
We just got a call. Hang on 1 second. Yeah, okay, I'll let them know. We had a call from ITV. Bradley Walsh is willing to give up his chair for Nigel. I've always said that Nigel is a game show host in the waiting, and I'm sure that's going to happen. Though truly, I think Nigel is just Nigel is terrible. You guys aren't. I have to appreciate. I appreciate it very much and say thank you, Basil Valentine. If somebody wants to find out more about you, besides at the Horsies. And you're also on, what's it called? I forgot, UK Column. That's right. Sorry about that.
That's right. I'll be on UK Column tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And I hope that Tony might be joining me. I'm going to give you a ring after the show, Tony, if you can.
Okay.
Much shorter segment, just 10 minutes tomorrow lunchtime of your precious time would be most appreciated.
Yeah. And what about, this is a booking, this is called the new booking show for the next show. And Basil, and what about a Facebook, or you're on X, or? No,
I'm not. I don't have a public profile on social media, and it's probably just as well, because I get very angry. My Twitter account was permanently suspended after.
So was mine. So was mine.
Ilon Levy, the former Israeli spokesman, objected to something I said. So
they can't take a joke, can they? They can't take a joke. Tony, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
Go to my blogs, TonyGreenstein.com or azvsas.blogs.com, but just Google me, you'll find a way.
We will indeed, and they will too. And James Freeman, where can they find you?
Just head over to X or Facebook, and it's just James Freeman. And can I just say, Tony, what a hero you are to many people in the country for being so brave and standing up to the judicial system the way you have. So yeah, thank you from everybody in the country really for doing what you did.
Basil Valentine, legend. Tony Greenstein, another legend, and James Freeman, biggest legend of them all. Thank you so much for your time. Rock on, TNT. Thank you. This has been The Protagonists.